for college football, as the CFP appears that it will be running up against some NFL games. And will that inspire some change from the powers that be at college football to move some of those games around? And there's also an update on the transfer portal. I know you guys love this stuff, but a proposal that eliminates the spring portal window in football is pretty close to being adopted, according to the NC Football Oversight Group. They've recommended to have just one window, which would be December the 9th to January the 7th, and it would take effect this cycle if the council approves it. So we'll talk about that, what you guys need to know as college football fans. Ross does a great job covering the game, and it was fun to kind of catch up with him this week. So we'll get to some football on the show today. We'll do a little RSL as well, as RSL is back in action, man. It's going to be 19 games, I believe, 19 days between games since we last saw them in Leagues Cup action, and most of the new players should be available coming up tomorrow night at 7:30 Mountain Time on Apple Television. RSL taking on San Jose. So, mostly football and a little bit of football, depending on how you roll. As that great SNL skit, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name, the comedian that was on SNL when they did the reenaction back where he was playing George Washington, I believe, and he was explaining football. Nate Bargatze, got it. I knew I'd get there. Oh, man. That's one of the best skits SNL has done forever, talking about how football is going to be called football, even though in soccer you actually kick a ball with your foot. In football, there's a little kicking. Sometimes it's worth 1 point. Sometimes it's worth 3. So we'll do a lot of American football and then a little football on the show today on a Friday afternoon to get you ready for the weekend ahead. Happy weekend, man. Deep breath. You guys did it. You should take a bow. Congratulations getting through another week, man. We're all just trying to do the best we can. All right. Right out of the gates, Chris Kamrani from The Athletic. CK wrote a piece on Utah football this week. He sat down with Coach Witt and talked to a bunch of players about expectations for the Utes. And little birdie tells me CK might be working on a piece about one Trevor Riley going to Saudi Arabia as a result of that interview that we had on our show this week that got a little loose on the show. But that's our guy. We love Trev. JB Long used to call games on the Pac-12 network when that was actually a thing. It still is. Shout out to Ted Robinson, who joined us this week. But JB's the voice of the Rams. Very familiar with Utah football, so we'll bring JB in today. Little RSL with Jason Kreis, then more college football with Kyle Bonagura. Might do a little soccer with Kyle as well. No real new NBA news. This is kind of the dark time on the calendar for the NBA as we kind of get ready for camp. There are plenty of rumors still regarding the Utah Jazz. Remember, Donovan wasn't traded until September, so this may not be it. Feels like it is, but we'll get to some of that on the program today. So hopefully you guys are having a great Friday. Chris Kamrani, JB Long, Jason Kreis, Kyle Bonagura, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, and that guy Porter Larson on a Friday afternoon. So my streak of preparing to look presentable on YouTube lasted 2 days.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good streak, though. It's admirable. I'm wearing a collared shirt today.
You look downright handsome.
Yeah. So I don't know what the deal is. I thought we were all in.
Oh, I'm all gas, no brakes. But here's the thing: on Friday, your boy does a little yoga. Don't have time to run home and shower and look presentable. So for all the listeners, if you want to know what I look like typically when I'm doing the show, today's the day to log on to YouTube.
I'm good with it. I'm in favor of casual Friday, casual Monday, casual Tuesday. In that regard, I'm a little bit of a casual guy. So I'm okay with it. You're just going to have to get approval from guys that get paid more than me.
Wait, we have a camera facing you today. Look at this.
I'm on YouTube. It's behind the glass for now. We're working on that. It'll be actually with me behind the glass.
Okay.
At some point. But yeah, I'm on the big webs.
So run to YouTube right now if you want to see what I look like when I typically do the show. We have 7 of you watching. Shout out to all 7. I think yesterday we peaked at 17, but hey, baby steps right in the right direction, one step at a time, yeah?
One step at a time. Every step forward is, again, a step forward. What's another... I don't
know where you're going with this one.
Just steps. Just trying to think of,
2 steps forward,
inspirational steps.
Think of like a Paula Abdul song.
There you go.
Step by step, or is that New Kids on the Block? Should we get to opening tip? We're getting loose.
Yeah.
9 people watching us now. Yeah, you'll see me in a backwards hat and pajamas. This is what I usually look like when I do the show. All right, Chris Kamrani is our first guest right out of the gates on a Friday. But before we get to CK, courtesy of our very good friends, your good friends too, if you're looking for a place to watch the RSL match tomorrow or Utah football next week, Beer Bar right downtown, Salt Lake City is your spot. Let's get to it. Time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Beer Bar, located in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. Get local beers and local sports at Beer Bar.
Utah football gets rolling next week. It will be game week next week. You're under 1 week away from Southern Utah rolling into Rice-Eccles Stadium to take on the Utes at 7 o'clock Mountain Time coming up next Thursday. That guy, his name is Porter Larson. He produces this show. Then he hosts our Utah Game Day Experience. Do you have any details that you'd like to drop on the peeps about Utah pre-half and post, all the stuff you're doing this year?
Well, at least for home games, and this is something I actually am stoked about. We're going to be on campus. We're going to be at the tailgate, there with our friends at Clearwater Distilling. We're going to be there by the Smiths VIP tailgate with Bill and Sly and Scott, all the folks. I'm not going to be at a bar in Sandy while you guys are all up tailgating and having a good time. I'm going to be with you on campus. Rotating cast of characters will be joining me. Robert Johnson, Isaac Asiata back in the fold, and we'll be having a good time and previewing what should be a really fun year. So,
have you told Rojo that he's supposed to be there coming up for games?
Yes.
Okay. All right. As long as he knows.
Yes.
All right. As long as he knows. So make sure to stay tuned. Coming up on Thursday, Porter will have you taken care of with a pregame. Then Bill, Scott, and Sly, our broadcast team, will have you ready to go. So I was doing a little crosstalk earlier with Zachariah, and we were talking about, and Porter, you've heard me say this before. So I do think there is a little bit of a mixed emotion going on in the market about, I do feel the excitement. You know, I do live close to campus now, and part of my morning routine is walking my dog across campus, and we walk by Rice-Eccles Stadium, and you can see a lot of students with mush shirts on. The signage is starting to kind of pop up everywhere. So there is a tremendous amount of buzz and excitement. I talked to Mark Harlan about this week, but I also feel like there is kind of this underlying anxiety about what could be next in college football, and a little bit of, I don't know how to put it, a little bit of sadness that the Pac-12 is no longer the reality. And I know we're all supposed to move on and say, thank you, Big 12, but I don't know how many people, are there entirely, because we all got a little spoiled, right? And that's the thing, and that was one of the things that I was most excited about. I can remember being up there. Bill and I were doing our old radio show at the introductory press conference with Dr. Hill and Coach Witt and a bunch of administrators from the U and a bunch of Pac-12 people. And the bulk of our show over the next few weeks was getting people ready for USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington and all these schools that would be rolling through Salt Lake City throughout the course of this Pac-12 experience. And, the home schedule this year is Southern Utah, it's Baylor, it's Arizona, it's TCU, it's BYU, it's Iowa State. Now, for those of you like me that are old school Utah football fans in the WAC and then the Mountain West Conference, that is a great home slate. But if you are just a Utah football fan starting in like 2009, 2010, and you're used to Southern Cal, you're used to UCLA, you're used to Washington, you're used to Oregon, you're used to these Pac-12 powerhouses, West Coast football brands at least, even if they weren't great teams from time to time, rolling into Salt Lake, I understand if the excitement isn't what it once was. However, as we talked about during Crosstalk, because of the expanded CFP, and I know that everybody's talking about, like Josh Pate, who is going to join us today, but he'll join us next week. He does his own poll called the JP poll, and Josh is a very bright college football mind. He has 10 Big 12 teams in his top 40, right? I think he has 2 Big 12 teams in his top 20, and it's Utah and it's K-State as far as his power rankings, although our guy did pick Iowa State and OK State to go to the Big 12 championship game. I was ready to take him to task today, and I was ready to finally crack out the shall I of supremacy that he sent us in preparation for the interview. But I bring that up because we have the expanded CFP, 12 teams in. Josh thinks only one Big 12 team is going to be in. There are a couple of ESPN writers that believe it's only one Big 12 team, because the dirty little secret is this expanded CFP essentially is more room for the bigger brands in college football that play in the Big Ten and the SEC. That's just kind of the deal. What they've done is this little kind of tomfoolery trick of hand type thing. We're like, hey, you smaller conferences. And by that, I mean everybody outside of the Big Ten and the SEC. Guess what? You have access now to this tournament. You have access now to this playoff. It's a cash grab at the end of the day for more TV content, and what TV executives want and the powers that be in college football want are the bigger brands taking up those time slots. It's not like, hey, there's another slot for the Mountain West Conference. If you guys do well, we're going to give you no, that's not the deal. Okay. And ultimately, that's kind of what it is. I think, when it comes to what we'll see with the 12-team CFP, you're going to see 4 or 5 Big Ten teams and 4 or 5 SEC teams. Obviously, we have to see how the dust settles. But what the powers that be in college football have always been excellent at are spinning tales and giving you propaganda and inventing terms, quite frankly, student athletes, to fool you into looking the other way when they're making deals in the back room to simply line their pockets with more money. We live in a capitalist society. I understand the reality. But we were talking about the last time I felt this excitement when it comes to what could be for Utah football. Because if Utah football wins the Big 12, they go to the CFP, they'll be a top 4 team, they'll get a bye, and then we'll see what happens. Joel Klatt has them as the number 3 seed, should they handle their business in the Big 12. But Porter, I always talk about that 2019 team as the team where I thought, okay, it's been long enough in the pack. It's been almost a decade. They've established themselves. They were preseason. I think they were preseason top 10. They climbed as high as 5 before losing to Oregon in the championship game. They're getting smoked by Texas. But when it comes to the excitement level in the markets, tell me what your pulse is, because I honestly feel like it's mixed. The bottom line is this: whenever Utah football is back, it's going to feel exciting. And Saturdays in the fall will always feel like Saturdays in the fall. I never bought into the whole the transfer portal and NIL is going to ruin the sport. No, it's not. I mean, ask yourself. You guys probably a few years ago when this stuff started happening, you're like, oh, college football, I love it so much, it's going to change. My question to you is, have Saturdays in the fall changed? Have they? Haven't for me. Have they for you? This sport is on solid enough footing, even with the ever-changing landscape, that it still feels like college football, and I think that it always will. But there are a lot of dynamics in play that are new, and change sometimes is hard. So from your vantage point, what do you feel? How would you articulate the excitement level for Utah football in the market? And for you personally, when's the last time you felt like Kyle had a team that could do what you think this team can do?
Well, you bring up a point that it's different. And I for me, it is a little bit different because of, yes, the sport is changing. I think the future of the sport is going to be very different. So for me, I'm looking at it through a scope where whatever you think of normalcy in college football, I'm grasping on to whatever of it is still kind of there, right? And not that it's all going away. I'm not trying to be a downer in that regard, but it's changing in big ways, right? And for me, there is a different excitement because you're going in with expanded college football playoff. You're going in with players who are seen as stars, a coach who is potentially on one of his swan song type years. This is a season where I definitely feel a different type of excitement because of not the team, not the expectations, but because of the context around college football and around Utah football and the timing as well. But if you're talking about on the football field, I would say, that it's probably 2019, the last time that I felt a Utah team had something to, a chance to do something really special, a chance to put it all together. And they almost did. Let's be clear. They were 1/2 away from making the 4-team college football playoff. They would have beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. So you expand the playoff. You return a team similar to that 2019 team. If you remember, Zach Moss, Lecky Fotu, Bradley and I, all those guys announced that they were coming back when they necessarily didn't necessarily have to. They could have gone to the NFL that year. So it's a similar roster in that sense. The one thing that keeps me a little bit more down to earth, Spence, is that Sione Vaki and Cole Bishop are playing in the NFL. If those two players are on this team, this roster, not only do I think that you have a chance to make noise in the Big 12 and make the college football playoff, I think you have a chance to do quite literally anything in college football this year. That being said, Morgan Scalley, Kyle Whittingham, they've earned the benefit of the doubt in replacing those types of players. But those are the two that I kind of look at as they were eligible for another year. And if those two are around, that excitement level would be taken up a notch.
So hopefully you guys are pumped, and hopefully we see that. I would imagine that stadium is going to be what it has been for a number of years, just loud and proud and packed. And we are excited to bring you the radio broadcast starting next week as SUU is in town. All right, get ready for an action-packed homestand as the Bees take on the Round Rock Express at Smith's Ballpark until August the 25th. Text BEES to 33986 now to enter to win tickets. That's BEES to 33986 right now. Chris Kamrani is our first guest on this lovely Utah Friday, so keep it right here on ESPN 700.
Jordan Noyes kicks it off. It's a high end-over-end kick, backpedaling and taking it. K.D. Nixon 2 yards deep into the end zone. Nixon trying to get to the outside, breaks a tackle, and then he's tripped up at about the 17.5-yard line. University of Utah covering that well, and it was Hayden Fury, the backup linebacker, that made the tackle. So USC will begin things with about an 83-yard field in front of them. And Scott, the guy we'll keep an eye on tonight, wears number 15. His name is Drake London, and he's the best wide receiver in the Pac-12, maybe the best wide receiver in college football.
Yeah, and I think USC will come out and try to just get quick passes, let athletes go on athletes, and just say our athletes are better. But yeah, Drake London is going to be a challenge for Utah tonight. It'll be interesting to see how Utah handles it.
Keaton Slovis brings out the offense, 1st and 10 from his own 17-yard line. Keontae Ingram in the backfield with him, a 3-wide look here on 1st down, a play-action pass. Pocket collapses, Slovis throwing to the outside. It's caught at the 30-yard line by Drake London. His 49th catch of the year, 17, making a 13-yard gain on 1st down. The pass rush was there. It didn't quite get home, and he completes the first pass of the game.
Yeah, and they're kind of getting to Slovis quickly, but that's just too easy in a throw. It's one-on-one here, and then Drake London won that one-on-one.
1st and 10 at the 30-yard line. Turn and a give and a play-action roll. Firing to the outside. Flanker screen. That's Bryant. He's got it to the 40 and cut down at the 43-yard line. Gary Bryant, freshman who's having a terrific freshman year. They're going to go with some tempo now with USC. That's a 13-yard gain and another 1st down. And USC off to a good start throwing the football.
Yeah, they go 20 yards here, 40 yards in a quick turnaround here. But those bubble screens, that's what was a problem for Utah last year in Salt Lake City, and they didn't handle it well on this first play.
Trips to the left-hand side, a tight end and a tailback of the ball game. Utah with a 4-man down front, 5 now at the line of scrimmage for Utah. Slovis operates out of the shotgun. Keaton Slovis brings Drake London to the inside in the left slot. They hand it to Ingram. Ingram bounces to the outside, tripped up and taken down as he picks up a yard. That was Devin Lloyd shooting the gap and grabbing Keontae Ingram around the ankle for a 1-yard gain. 2nd down and 9 coming up.
Yeah, and good to see from Devin playing downhill and making a tackle there in open field. It's hard to do, and these athletes at USC, they're going to test you all night long.
Keontae Ingram sounds familiar. He ran for over 100 yards and a touchdown against Utah in the Alamo Bowl a couple of years ago, playing for Texas. Slovis going to change the play at the line of scrimmage now. He sees what he likes in the Utah defense. Now they shift around. Slovis on 2nd down and 9, hands it again to Ingram straight up the middle. Keontae Ingram 2nd level to the Utah 49-yard line. It'll be a gain of about 6 yards, maybe 7. It'll be 3rd down and 2 coming up here for USC. Yeah, and this is the money down.
It did, no question, money down, but an interesting play there. Utah had everyone lined up on their right side, and then USC changed the play, and then Utah went away from it, and they ran right into where all the other players would have been. They should have stayed where they were.
So 3rd down and 3 here, first 3rd down of the evening. Utah crowding the box. Slovis takes and gives on the fly sweep to Drake London, who's got 1st down yardage at the 45. He needed 3. He picked up 5. They do a little bit of everything with Drake London. That's a gain and a 1st down for USC to the Utah 45-yard line.
Yeah, it's like a jet sweep without the jet part. He just kind of at the snap just takes it, and really all it is a normal sweep play to the outside, well blocked, well executed.
Kind of a Cessna sweep more than a jet sweep right there. So 1st down and 10 USC as they have the ball on the opening drive. 12:24 to play here in the first quarter. 1st and 10 from the Utah 45-yard line. 4 wide look now for Slovis. Brings the receiver in tight, hands it again, this time to Ingram. Stacked up at the line of scrimmage and driven back Keontae Ingram. They tried to spread Utah out that time, and Utah was ready, a 1-yard gain. Tackle right up in front by Devin Kaufusi.
Yeah, and Utah is really stout against the run. You still have to honor that run, even though USC is going to throw the ball a lot.
2nd down and 9. They empty the backfield now. Keaton Slovis stands by himself with a 5-wide look from the Utah 44. Now he changes the play with 15 on the play clock. Utah with 7 at the line of scrimmage. Now they dump out of it. Blitz off the edge, thrown to the outside. They've got London, and he'll be wrapped up and taken down for no gain at the 44-yard line. That was a great read on the outside. Who was that, Fabian Marks? Yeah, it was. Fabian had the initial. He nearly got to that football before London did.
Yeah, and this
It is Friday. A little rainy outside, but the sun is shining here. And it's time for your Friday staple to get you ready for the weekend from The Athletic. For now, my man's got some side gigs going on. Chris Kamrani on a Friday. Happy Friday, CK. How we doing, buddy?
I wish I had some side gigs. I'm good. How are you, man?
I feel like you have enough time, enough energy, and enough intelligence. Like if I forced you, or the universe forced you to start a side hustle, what would you do?
It's a great question. I feel like I would be really good at like cleaning cars, like being those guys that just like Winston Wolfe, not what the Wolf did, not who his affiliations were with, but if I had to fix a problem, if I had to get something looking really presentable in a short amount of time, I feel like I could do it. Does that make sense?
It does, but you wouldn't search out potential murderers to clean bodies and blood. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah. I would not want any pieces of skull in the back seat, but I would want to be able to help a client out by, they're coming down off the mountain and it's, muddy and really in need of a good cleaning. I don't know, man. I'm weird. Like I really like, and it's not even an OCD thing. I just like doing that. It's just I'm almost 40. I like things clean. I don't know.
Almost 40. You can't say that to me and expect any sympathy, pal, as you know. But anyway, let's move over to the piece that you wrote about the Utes that I read this week. You were able to, let's start with your impressions after sitting down with Coach Witt. Obviously, you were able to talk to him. That was part of your piece. What are some of the things that he said to you that stood out? And tell me how he seemed to you as somebody who's known him for a long time, as we're high speed ahead of Utah football now.
Yeah, I wish I could say he seemed different, but he's usually always the same guy, and he was in this instance as well. To me, it's always fascinating with a guy like Kyle, who already has his legacy cemented, who is clearly chasing to add on to it. But, as a guy who understands my job and understands how things can be construed, he's not going to come right out with it and say, yeah, I want to win another conference title, be one of the only few coaches in the history of recent college football that's done it at 3 different conferences and make a college football playoff. He's not going to come out and say that outright, but obviously that's what he's chasing and that's what he's yearning to do. And I think he believes, and a lot of people within those walls of the football facility believe, that he has a chance to do that this year. So much of it hinges on the health of Cam Rising, as we've talked about ad nauseum for the past 19 months. But in talking to Kyle, I think he believes that this team, despite entering a new conference and getting ready to tangle with a bunch of teams for the first time, I think he believes that they have a shot at winning this thing. And again, it just goes to show and prove what he's been able to build, especially since moving up to the P5 level. Well, now the formerly P5 level, the defunct P5 level, now they are part of the P4 level. And they've, as Kyle said, they've improved their recruiting and roster every single year. And, they do have the luxury of having a 7th-year, 25-year-old quarterback who's won 2 conference championships and taken them to 2 Rose Bowls at the helm. I think this would be a totally different scenario if we're talking about Utah entering the Big 12, if, Cam is gone and we're talking about a quarterback battle between Brandon Rose and Isaac Wilson. but we're not. We're talking about a team that has a guy who under center has already cemented his status as a program legend. And I think there's a serious belief locally, but also nationally, that Utah will be one of those 12 come end of December.
Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, every day you get up, you check the news cycle, and you kind of read and listen to some podcasts to see where most people believe Utah is going to fall, and most people do have Utah either winning the Big 12 or in the mix. Here's the question: it does feel like most people believe, and this is what I believe. Okay, expanded CFP into 12 teams, in my opinion, are power brokers in college football working with powerful TV executives to create more content that allows them to put their bigger brands on TV more. So I feel like it's 4 or 5 Big Ten, 4 or 5, obviously there's the automatic qualifiers if you win your conference. And, that allows them to propagate the notion that, hey, little guy, you actually do have more access. When in reality, for me, it's creating more content to put on TV platforms and therefore filling that content with bigger brands from the Big Ten and the SEC. Do you think Utah has to win the Big 12 to get into the CFP? Because I'm starting to feel like that might be the case.
Oof. I think that hinges on how some other top flight teams perform in the Big Ten and the SEC. I mean, I think there is a scenario in which if Utah goes 11-1 and their one loss is to an 11-1 or potentially undefeated Big 12 champion, I think it would be pretty hard to leave Utah out as, a 10 to 12 spot. But it totally depends. I mean, if we're talking about kind of the status quo in the SEC and the Big Ten, you can make an argument that there's 6 teams off the top of your head that if they have a decently successful season, they might be shoo-ins. And then you get into the politics of who ends up taking those last 6 spots. Not to mention, will there finally be room for a 12-0, Mountain West Conference champion? If Boise State or, whomever goes undefeated, you would hope that they finally get their shot, because again, as I've said before, and as a lot of people know, like, we probably aren't even in this position now with an expanded playoff without memorable, legendary games that Utah and Boise State had in the BCS era. So I do think it would hinge a lot on how some of the other highly ranked teams in the 2 perceived better conferences handle themselves if Utah isn't going to be a Big 12 champion, and it depends on, if they can sneak in.
Started the show off with kind of testing the excitement level around town for the start of the season next year. And the bottom line, in a vacuum, the net takeaway is there's always excitement for the start of college and pro football. I mean, the NFL is king, and then college football is the second most popular sport in our country. Every measurable metric, every data point indicates that. I've talked to more people than I expected. A couple of my friends straight up didn't renew their tickets. Now, the waiting list for tickets is long, so it's not like Utah's bummed if anybody decides to tap out. But a few people I know aren't necessarily enthused about this home schedule, juxtaposed to what we all became accustomed to with Pac-12 teams and big West Coast college brands coming to Salt Lake City. From your little vantage point, from your echo chamber, the folks you talk to, how would you characterize the excitement level for Utah football with a brand new landscape starting next week?
I mean, I think this might sound shallow, but I think most of it just hinges on the return of Cam, honestly. I mean, I think fans are smart enough to know that if you have a very good quarterback who's won before, you have a chance to do it again. And I think that is a boon for Utah and its fan base. But I guess I will say there is some sense of loss in the death of the Pac-12, just because you're losing the regionality, you're losing great places to travel. You're not going to see a lot of people wanting to necessarily empty their bank account to go to places like Lubbock or Ames, Iowa, or Morgantown, West Virginia. I know that place isn't even on the schedule this year, but I do think there is a mourning process that will take place still with the death of the Pac-12. But I think Utah fans are excited, and I don't know. I'm always going to be the guy to ask for a little bit of logic with, people who ask like what I think. I'm not going to get the pom-poms out like a lot of our media members do here and say everything's going to be great. Utah's going to go undefeated and Cam's going to throw for 90,000 yards. That's probably not going to be the case. And the reality is I think Utah might have a quote unquote stumble or two, and that's totally fine because that's the way life is in college football. But I think if you were going to ask a diehard Utah football fan, they're all in. If you were going to ask a casual Utah football fan, I think they would say, who are we playing this year? Oh, we're not playing Washington or USC. Okay, let me know in November how we're doing.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, let's move over to, as somebody who's been to Boulder past couple of years, familiar with the tone and tenor of the Coach Prime, whatever you want to call it, whatever's going on around there, doing a good job of writing about the economic benefit of having a coach that has brought so many eyeballs to that market. I don't know how good they're going to be, but we had an interview this week, Chris, with a former Ute named Trevor Riley. I brought him on. I'm lucky enough to know him well because we've done radio forever, and I was able to get to know him after he finished playing football because he would come do a bunch of radio. And he's a unique breed. He really, the cliche one of one might be overused, but I think it applies to him. And he shared a lot during that interview. I essentially just brought him on and let him run. But I wonder what your reaction is to Trevor resigning after, in his own words, doing what he could and getting very creative, sometimes dangerously so, to try to lock in some NIL funds for Colorado. As somebody who knows the deal down in Boulder and has covered Coach Prime and the Buffs, what's your reaction to this story this week with former Ute Trevor Riley?
Well, I think two things caught my ear. First was Trevor's apparent holiday spent in the Middle East in a Turkish bathhouse, and then later on talking to the Saudi Arabia Transport Authority. That was very fascinating. I would love to see some photos and potential receipts of that because getting to that place is not cheap or easy. Mm-hmm. But based on the way you describe him and the way others I know describe him, I would like that makes sense for who he is and what he could be able to do. Secondarily, if Colorado's NIL state is as dire as Trevor painted it out to be, that's pretty surprising and that's pretty damning considering the amount of fiscal influx that Dion has brought in the last 2 years. If the folks at CU and the folks who are in charge of rounding up NIL funds to help the football program compete with the powers that be, if it's only $6 million, that is you're in dire straits. And I think Trevor is right when he says, like, in a couple of years, that's what a Mountain West Conference school is going to be spending. So it will be interesting to see what else comes to light in the coming weeks and months. I'm somewhat jealous that Trevor is, living his best life in Hilo Bay, and hope he could eventually get back into the sport, because I think the sport is better with guys like him involved, guys who aren't robotic, guys who refuse to be robotic, and who will, by all accounts, kind of be unafraid to speak up when they see various, I guess you can say, perceived injustices or things not being done the right way. My read of the situation was, Trevor was technically not a full-time staffer with a full-time salary. He was working full-time hours. If he was making $90,000 in Boulder, as he said, that is not enough money to really sustain yourself in a place that's very expensive to live. And, as Colorado has come out and said, Trevor acted on his own to pursue these NIL funds. But I think if you were to ask him, he probably did it to try to prove to Dion that he was worthy of a full-time slot and worthy that he could do more than he was currently being asked to do.
So I became familiar with Yasser Al-Rumayyan during the golf situation when Live Golf started poaching some of the best golfers in the world. And the public investment fund, with the Saudis investing in tremendous amount of different sports with a lot of different money, has made a lot of waves. And I said about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, I felt like it was inevitable that at some point they would dip their toes into college football because the NFL doesn't need them. And college football right now, as they try to regulate the chaos they've caused, still is in a spot where there are plenty of things that are gray areas. So I thought at some point, if the Public Investment Fund and if the Saudis wanted to get involved, there'd be plenty of people in our footprint out here in the United States that are involved with college football looking to get ahead that would have no issue tapping into that money. I wonder what your thoughts are on this dynamic from a macro standpoint, and then also whether or not you think it's going to permeate into college football.
That's a good one. I honestly think for me, it's easy to say that all you need is the first domino to fall and then everything else will follow. But I think that's a pretty big domino that would need to fall in the first place. We live in a capitalistic society where money talks and talks as loud as it ever has. So I would not be surprised one iota if that turns out to be the case. How and where they potentially could get involved is, totally up in the air and up to it's pretty subjective. But I do agree that there is a tremendous amount of runway for very wealthy people who want to eventually invest in the sport, no matter where they live around the world, and they will eventually make a whole lot of money off of it. And in what form or fashion, we'll have to wait and see. But it is, I don't want to say it's a ticking time bomb, but it's just more of an inevitability, if that makes sense. We are just going to see some very wealthy people, whether it's, VC bros in Florida or somewhere else around the world, they're going to find a way to invest when that eventually could become legal, and they'll make money because that's what happens in this country.
So I will follow up with, we all know the story. It's Jamal Khashoggi, who was a journalist who was killed over there, murdered over there about 5 years ago. And, we're building a new embassy over there, and our government leaders have tried to repair relationships, and probably with what you just said, their thought in mind is that being a capitalist society, there's so much money over there. If we can ease over some relationships, maybe with how rich the Saudis are, that can benefit our country some way, somehow. It makes a lot of people very uncomfortable because, of course, their history of, shall I say, shady human rights behaviors. How do you feel about whether it's our government or professional golf? I mean, obviously, soccer has a bunch of Saudi money in it. What's the CK take on just the dynamic of the United States trying to build a bridge with the Saudis, which appears to be financially motivated?
Well, I think you could ironically say that the most headway made in the last several years has come on the golf course, which nobody probably ever would have thought beforehand, but that is the world we live in. Listen, as somebody who comes from Middle East heritage, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know how to fix all of the political, I don't want to say rivalry, but there's stuff that you always have to figure out and sort through. It's a historically difficult walk. It's a tango, and you're asking a guy who has lots of potential answers, but probably shouldn't share them, on the drive 2 to 6 Monday to Friday. That's probably more reserved for a reality check podcast. We can dive into that at another time.
Now I'm just extremely curious as to what those answers would sound like, but for the sake of it being Friday, we'll move on from it. Oh, by the way, are we out back with an oddity? Although you can't find those anymore. What's the CK scene today?
Oh, I'm on the couch, have the television on to distract the progeny, doing my best to keep the airwaves clear and smooth. It's really windy out, man. It's been really windy out lately. And like I always say, I don't want it's a huge turnoff for people listening to radio or podcasts when there's very loud, muffled background noise. So my aim is to always please the listeners and the host of The Drive.
Which you do week in and week out with no exception. All right, before I set you loose, in case you forgot, we do have a soccer team here, and they are playing tomorrow. It'll be 3 weeks, about 19 days, I think, between games. Going to talk to Jay in a little bit. It appears that all of the new players outside of the Mark Zook kid, the young Polish international, should be available. We got a B. Larson appearance at the Harriman facility in a SL Trib article on the current happenings with the club. What's the CK take?
It's a brand new season in a sense, but it kind of is. Like, you are coming off a drubbing at Houston. You haven't played in nearly 3 weeks. You lost in a tournament, so you got bounced out of tournament in a rough fashion to a team that bounced you out of the playoffs a year ago. Your leading scorer was suspended for over a month during the last few months. He hasn't looked the same before he got suspended. You sold one of your best players to France. You brought in a bunch of guys who will need to hit the ground running. I think, to me, the A block is how Diogo Gonçalves acclimates himself. Like, I think that's going to be the most crucial part of all of these transactions, because he's a proven guy and he's a guy that they brought in. I think they would have brought him in even if they hadn't sold Andres, and he's a very versatile guy. I mean, I would not be surprised to see him be moved around. I don't think he's going to be, tethered to that quote unquote number 10 position. For me, it's going to be how Diogo gets used to RSL, gets used to the league, and if he can help them capitalize on a pretty soft, tail end to the MLS season, where I think they have 5 or 6 out of their last however many games at home. They hadn't looked that good the previous 6 weeks when they were playing. So let's see how they look now that we're getting into the part of the season that really matters.
All right, buddy. Appreciate the time. Have a great weekend, and we will catch up soon, okay? All right. There he is. Chris Comradi from The Athletic. Always appreciate his time. All right, we have a new client on the station. It's Fika Infusion and Wellness. Now, Fika is spelled Fika. So definitely check them out online at fikainfusion.com. They have a number of different services, and I've been out there a couple of different times. I've visited the facility. It's really nice. It's like a high-level, high-class spa. So if you're tired of a packed gym, and if you're wanting to lose weight or just give your body the vitamins and nutrients it needs, Fika is the spot. So they do have the weight loss stuff. They have the semaglutide. They have the Ozempic, everything that, your aunt may have shown up to a family reunion. You're like, what happened to you? Ozempic, semaglutide, not judging. It is helping a lot of people. They have that at the best prices in the market. What I use them for is for their vitamins and nutrient shots and their hydration shots and IVs. That's the best thing that I think that they have, because it's what I need for my body. If I have a tea time on a Saturday morning and it was a late Friday night, I'll leave about 20 minutes early. I'll roll by Fika in Mill Creek. They hook me up with one of those hydration shots. It takes like 10 minutes. They have nurse practitioners on site, so it's safe, it's easy. But here's the deal. You can see if you like it, because they're hooking you up with $100 off your first IV. It's almost free. So if you go to Fika Infusion and Wellness and just say, hey, heard Spence talking on a show about your hydration shots or your IVs, your vitamin and nutrient IVs, they're going to knock $100 off. So you might as well go try it to see if you like it, okay? You can get a consultation today online or visit one of their locations in Mill Creek, Woods Cross, and Park City. Coming soon to American Fork. Check them out online at www.fikainfusion.com. Again, Fika is spelled Fika. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go on this Friday. More football comes your way. Coming up next with the voice of the Rams, J.B. Long. Then it's Jason Kreis and Kyle Bonagura. Plenty to do. Keep it right here on ESPN 700.
Jordan Noyes has it teed off on the north 35-yard line. He'll kick to the south. And we're ready to play football here tonight at Rice-Eccles Stadium. A high end-over-end kick that will go into the end zone and be returned. And now they'll say a touchback. He gave the sign for the fair catch. That was Rashad White, and then he decided to bring it out. You can't do that, so UASU will have it 1st and 10 at their own 25-yard line. And we will see for the first time tonight the guy that committed to Utah that changed his mind. That's quarterback Jaden Daniels, a 6'3 junior who's really good, Scott, a dual-threat quarterback.
Yeah, he's going to be a challenge for Utah. He's a guy that can throw the ball very accurately, and he can also make and extend plays running the football. So it'll be interesting to see how Utah handles him tonight.
It won't be White, though, that starts out in the backfield. It'll be Tranum that will be in the backfield. Chip takes it. Play action pass. Daniels looking down the field, throwing down the field. Is it caught? It is. Ricky Pearsall makes the grab on the near sideline for a gain of, what are they going to call it, 12 yards and a first down. So a little play action on first down. Pearsall gets both feet down, and a 12-yard gain here for the Devils. First down and 10. They'll move it to the 37-yard line. Utah with a four-man down front. They'll spread the field with four wide receivers. Daniels this time will hand off. Right side, pushing the pile forward to about the 40-yard line and a gain of 3. Decent run on the play that time by Arizona State off that right-hand side.
Yeah, and that's a good sign there by Utah. Playing downhill early in this game is so important for this defense. You can't let this offensive line get into these linebackers in the second level.
Train on the back of the backfield on second down and 7 from the ASU 40, and Utah crowding the line of scrimmage. Daniels now changing the play. 2 tights and 2 wides here for the Devils as Daniels operates out of the gun. He'll scramble to his right and get into the open field beyond the 45 and diving out near midfield to about the 50-yard line. He picks up 10 yards. That's what he can do. Simple zone read that time. And the tackle by Fabian Marks in the open field. First down for ASU.
Yeah, and Utah had the play covered. They had 9 guys at line of scrimmage. Should have had that play.
Here we go. They're going to throw the flanker screen to the outside. It's caught there. Through some traffic and down is Brian Thompson with just his 4th catch of the year. The former Ute picks up 4 yards to the Utah 46-yard line.
Yeah, and that's something that USC did fairly effective is this bubble screen, and I'm sure Utah's going to see a heavy dose of it.
5 wide look now, and Daniels backpedals to pass. Pressure coming, firing over the middle. He's got the underneath man beyond the 40 to the 35-yard line. Ricky Pearsall again. And another good pickup, that time for ASU. Picking up 12, making 11 more yards, and a first down to the Utah 35. They're having no trouble, Scott, on this opening drive moving the football.
Yeah, and it's just, it's not just high percentage, quick throwing, quick hitting runs. I mean, I don't know.
3 wide, the tight end. Train him in the backfield. He'll now motion to the right-hand side of Jaden Daniels. Utah rushing 5 this time. Daniels surveys, scrambles out to his right, looks down the field, fires behind his man, incomplete. Trying to get that to Curtis Hodges, who's kind of a hybrid tight end wide receiver look. He's one of their leading wide receivers. Incomplete. That time a little bit of pressure on Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and Utah brings a corner blitz here, and really it's kind of a run blitz, but just a little bit behind his wide receiver was Jaden Daniels. But again, you move him in the pocket a little bit, make him a little bit nervous, show him these different looks, and over time that stuff kind of wears on you as a quarterback.
3 wide, a tight end, and now a tailback. Trainham has been the guy so far. Makes you wonder if Rashad White's going to play here tonight. Hand off Trainham. Nope, Daniels on that right-hand side. Bounces to the outside. He's cut down. Now a flag flies. We may have a holding call coming against ASU here as they upend Daniels out of bounds at about the 32-yard line. We'll wait on the call here. Kyle Whittingham's got a decision to make. Here it is.
Holding.
Yep, they're going to get Jalen Conyers, one of those hybrid tight end wide receivers, on that play, and they'll back him up 10 yards. So.
Yeah, this is an easy one to see here. I mean, it's out in open space, and clearly he holds there. But aside from that, Utah handled that really well. I mean, this is a keep by Jaden Daniels here, and Utah played it very nicely.
Utah's going to have to get a defender on this side of the field. There's swims to the left-hand side. Nobody out here to cover it. Now they'll go empty again. 5 wide look here for ASU. Daniels by himself in the shotgun. 4-man rush, now a 5-man rush off the edge, down the middle. Caught! Inside the 25 and down to the 24-yard line. That's Curtis Hodges. He needed 20. He
All right, we're going to bring in Jason Christ today from RSL. Believe it or not, they're back in action. 3 weeks, basically, between games, 19 days. San Jose is the opponent tomorrow night, 7:30, and then we're going to bring in Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. But joining us now, friend of the program, it's been a minute, formerly of the Pac-12 Network, you know him as the voice of the Rams, the great JB Long, on a Friday afternoon. JB, happy Friday, sir. How we doing?
And back to you, Spence. Good to reconnect with you. Thank you for the invitation.
I appreciate the time as always. So let me ask you this. We've had Yogi Roth on. We're going to have Guy on next week. Have you been able to properly process the demise of the Pac-12, and have you moved on with your life? Because I'm still trying to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting phrasing, tricky phrasing. Properly processed, I guess, yes. Moved on, no, not ever. And I don't think there's a whole lot of sense necessarily in moving on, because moving on almost suggests a more permanent state or a settled set of business. And I'm not sure that we're completely there yet in the college landscape. So I wouldn't say I'm like still hung up on it, if that's a better answer for you. But no, I think I'll always think fondly of what was and what could have been and look forward to what might still be to come.
May I ask you what your college football, if your Twitter pulled up, you guys can follow JB on, and I still call it Twitter, at JB_long, and it says you will be doing some college football with TNT and the CW. Give us an idea of what that looks like, JB.
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate to link up with both of those entities and really just maintain a foothold in college football television, and especially as we know it in the West, right? To be affiliated still with the Pac and also with the Mountain West and with a couple of great broadcast entities. I'm excited about that. And as luck would have it, it fits very nicely into kind of my existing Rams schedule. So in some small way, I'm glad to contribute to both of those networks and their expanding efforts in the college football space.
Very nice. Well, glad that you're going to be on that space as well. And I do want to talk some Rams. But before we get there, as you know, we are the home of the Utes, and we have moved over into the Big 12. And the media picked Utah to win the conference. Vegas agrees with the lines that they've set. During your years of the Pac-12, you called Utah football games. You know Coach Witt. You know the program. Cam's back, a ton of talent back, a ton of veteran talent back. There's a lot of buzz around here. What would you say to our fan base here as far as your expectations for the Utes year one in the Big 12?
Hit them. Why not? I mean, it's been one of my favorite college football stories to follow, not just from my time and their time in the Pac-12, but even going back to the Urban Meyer days and well before that. I've just always found them an easy program, easy city, easy community to root for. I've always enjoyed my time there. Recreationally, going back to my AAU basketball days as a youth visiting Salt Lake City and going to Bees games, and then professionally as well. So the infrastructure is in place. They've got the resources to do it at the highest level. It's almost hard for me to reconcile that, that they made the leap from the Mountain to the Pac so seamlessly and are doing it again and are being picked as a favorite in year one. No part of me is surprised, but I just think it's a testament to all that's been put in place there and the retention, both in terms of coaching and player development. Even though it's different, it's still what I think college football, when it's at its best, is all about.
Wait a second. Non sequitur. AAU basketball? Now I need to know what kind of player you were, JB. I want an NBA comp. Okay, I want to know what kind of AAU player you were.
Yeah, I was a scared to shoot pass first point guard who could guard 1 through 5. Does that help?
Oh, no, that works. Okay, fair enough. I just did not know you were a baller. Having interviewed you for a couple of years now, that's new information. And so you guys would travel out here to play AAU tournaments, huh?
Yeah, the national championships, gosh, would that have been maybe like the U12 year? We're there, and one of my teammates then is actually the son of Hall of Famer Mike Montgomery, John Montgomery. He's now coaching in Long Beach. And those were the days, man. That's when we thought that if you could make varsity in like the Silicon Valley area, that you're probably going to grow up to be a warrior at some point. Little did I know that a lot of people play basketball around this country and around the world, and I never had a sniff at it.
Yeah, I learned my lesson the hard way at the age of 16, going to five-star basketball camp and trying to guard. Well, he was Shamgod Wells at the time. He's now God Shamgod. He's an assistant with the Mavericks. And I came home in tears. I'm like, Dad, I'm not playing in the NBA. Those guys are different than I am. So we all had our ceiling, JB. Mine was at 16.
Do you remember a front court player who had a good career, Tyson Chandler,
sure,
in the league?
Of course.
We went down to Southern California and played against his poly team. And I got a black eye from Tyson Chandler. That's one of my claims to fame. But it wasn't like we got in a tussle and I was, really contesting him at the rim. He literally, Spence, went up to get a rebound and came down, and my eye socket just happened to be in the vicinity of his elbow when he's kind of in like a landing rebounding position. That's how that happened.
And those are sharp elbows, man. That must have hurt. All right, nobody gives a rip about our mediocre basketball careers, so we can move on. One more college football question, then I do want to talk a little Rams. Obviously, your gig as the voice of the Rams. Since I haven't talked to you in a while, Coach Witt is very forthcoming and honest about his opinion that this is still a temporary solution where we're at right now. And he believes that, in his words, in the next few years, there's going to be a shift and it will eventually look like pro football. You know the deal. We all know the deal. People have written about the model, talked about the model. What's your take on where we're at with college football, and what do you think comes next?
Yeah, I think that's probably the backdrop, Spence, to my initial answer to your question. I wasn't trying to be dodgy. I was just like deferring to the wisdom of people, like him, like Chip Kelly, like, Jake Dickert, and so many others who are involved in this sport, either their longevity, their conscience, or the fact that they're in it right now and what they feel they need to compete at their various spots, or that the sport and their universities need to make it make sense moving forward. And I don't think we've reached the final stage there. And so I don't have an answer for you. And I know that makes for bad talk radio, but I do feel like some subdivision of the Division I space, or some separate portion of an athletic department that is football related and allows basketball, men's and women's and Olympic sports to exist in a different light, in a different set of rules, and in the more traditional, student athlete amateur model. Here's one thing I learned though, Spence, is that even people like Witt, who deserve to have a say in the matter and a seat at the table, they may not get to decide. We may not get to decide. This is not something that's up for necessarily a vote, right? Like, forces outside our own control dictate these things. And that's what the last couple of years have taught me as much as anything.
Yeah, well said. Since you will be doing some Mountain West games, we have a Mountain West Conference team in our state. About, 70 miles north of us is Logan, Utah, the home of Utah State. And, JB, it's been an eventful offseason for our friends up at Utah State, as Blake Anderson, Jerry Bovee, a couple of others, they lost their jobs as a result of a investigation based off of some improper reporting structures. There's some Title IX stuff. I don't know what to expect from them year one. Their new coach, Coach Dreiling, seems to be a pretty impressive guy. He was informed of his, I guess I'll say, promotion in a bar in Dublin with his wife as they were on vacation. It's tough to know. I don't know how much. Look, I know you've been high speed ahead with your Ram stuff and everything else, but since you'll be calling Mountain West Conference games, I wonder if you have a take on what we should expect around here from the Aggies this year.
Utah State individually per se, but I take it as a good sign that I think in a competitive conference that's going to face one of the most challenging out-of-league schedules that any league, much less a group of five, has ever faced, is about to undertake. That it speaks highly of the talent and the roster they have in place to be picked right in the middle of a league that I think has a clear favorite in Boise State and some other front runners like UNLV, maybe Fresno State, maybe Colorado State. And I'm excited for the likes of the Aggies and others, because there's a real opportunity to not just advance their program in the college football landscape, but also to compete for a playoff spot. Like, I think a Boise State or someone else that wins this league has a legitimate case to be made because of their credentials, because of the schedule they're going to face as a Mountain West champion, to be included in this expanded college football playoff.
All right, moving over to the Rams. As I've told you before, we're the unofficial home of the Rams in the market because I'm a McVay guy, as we've talked about. Let's start with health, because it does seem like past couple of years, and Utah football fans can relate, last year, one hand tied behind Utah's back all year because of their lack of health. As we are under 2 weeks away from opening day, how healthy are the Rams right now?
Well, yeah, not just your affinity for McVay, but Puka Nacua, right?
For sure, yeah.
He's very much involved in that conversation. Had a little knee scare during joint practices against the Chargers a couple of weeks back. Seems like everything is on track for him to be there week one when they travel to Detroit to kind of play back that wild card game last January on Sunday Night Football. I would say the health is not great, Spence, but it's also more fortunate than most and shouldn't be any hindrance at this stage of the game to who they can be and where they want to go. Obviously, most importantly is to have Matthew Stafford healthy, and he's been, I would say, as right as he has been through any offseason program in the 4 years that I've been around him, which is encouraging. And then there's a real youthful undercurrent on this roster, especially defensively, that I think gives them some juice. And a lot of those draft picks, a lot of those second-year guys coming back are in good shape and still have a lot of really good tread on their tires. So, if last year was any indication, whether it's, being 3-6 at the midway point or finishing 7-1, whatever you think in August, the preseason lies to you anyway. So probably best not to get too caught up in it. As long as you haven't had any season-altering, year-ending injuries, you're still in the mix if you feel like you're a contender. And that's the group that I would put the Rams in. Are they a favorite, be it in their division conference or to win a Super Bowl? Probably not, but are they on the short list of teams that if things do break their way this season are going to be a tough out, come January, maybe February? Yeah, I think they're right there in that next tier.
It's the feel around there with no Aaron Donald for the first time as he is retired. He was such a stalwart and one of the best players, period, in all of pro football. What's it like kind of replacing a guy like that?
The caveat that's kind of there in a lot of people's minds, including those closest to it, in terms of how far can this Rams team go? Can we build a case that this is one of the best teams in the NFC, and if not the NFL, while knowing in the back of our mind that they're about to undertake life after the greatest player in franchise history? To not have a cheat code right there in the middle of your defense, a breath away from the opposing quarterback every Sunday, I'd be lying to you if I said I knew how that's going to play out, starting in a couple of weeks in Detroit, right? Because I just have not lived that existence with the Rams. I've been fortunate to have Aaron Donald be there for just about every snap of my tenure. So what a spoiled privilege that's been, and they've done everything they can to pour resources into replacing him with volume, because we all know it's not going to be one individual. Not this year, not ever.
So you referenced Puka, and it's funny, we have this event here every year called the State of Sport Awards, and, all of us go down there in the media, and they hand out awards for the best college players, best college coaches, and then they hand out the award for the best pro, who's from Utah. Puka won it this year. And JB, every time I see him, I just chuckle. He just does not look like he should for as dominant as he is as a pro athlete. He just looks like a dude, and he just acts like it. He's just, as you know, he's the nicest kid. We've been watching him play football around here since he was a teenager. Now that you've spent some time around him, how would you articulate what makes him as dominant as he's been so far? And then I've seen a lot of clips on the relationship, and he talked about this when he accepted his award, his relationship with Cooper Kupp, who obviously at one point was probably the best receiver in the game that had some health issues as well. I wonder, for our fans out here, our BYU fans, our football fans, what have you noticed most about what makes Puka Nacua who he is?
Like Puka Nacua are those who are responsible for tackling him. Everybody else, if you don't get along with Puka, that's a you problem, right? That's a reflection on something being wrong in your world. I've been asked a lot, what can he do for an encore after the best rookie receiving season, arguably in NFL history? And statistically, I don't think he can do any more. I don't think he's going to necessarily match his numbers from a year ago, in part because if things go well for the Rams, he won't have to, because he'll have that running mate in former Super Bowl MVP and Triple Crown winner Cooper Kupp. And what a smart move by Puka, who lived the life, whether it was coming back to his home state or going to an NBA All-Star game, taking advantage of the Pro Bowl opportunities. He has lived the life, and I'm almost glad for him, Spence, to be back in a football season mode, because he can almost exhale and just kind of do what he does best. But to your question, the best move that he made was between year one, year two, linking up with Cooper Kupp, who in terms of the process goes about it better than anyone I've ever been around, on that side of the football, at that position especially. And so if Puka is going to build on that freshman campaign, he's going to do it in a couple of ways. His physical fitness, which he worked on all offseason with Kupp, his diet, which goes hand in hand with that. He's admittedly never had a vegetable and doesn't plan to, which is amazing. Shouldn't we all be so fortunate? And then lastly, the drops. It's almost a humble brag that Puka was, the league leader in drops last year, because it showed you how well he played, how much the Rams relied on him, how much his coach and quarterback trusted him, that you can pile up drops by volume, not necessarily by percentage or rate, but just like they're throwing you that many footballs that you can have that many drops and set rookie records for receptions.
JB, I know you got to run. We'll set you loose. I always appreciate your time, and let's do it again soon, okay?
I'm glad to be the bridge between Yogi and Guy. Anything I can do to be that connective tissue between two of the all-time greats and the pillars of this program, what an honor. And I wish you a great football season ahead. Hello to all my friends in Salt Lake City. I'm going to miss you, at least in the first part of this calendar, but hope to be back soon.
Great, sir. There he is, JB Long. He is the voice of the Rams, spent a number of years with the Pac-12 network, called a lot of Utah football and basketball games. He's going to do some college football with TNT and the CW. He's going to be calling some Mountain West Conference games this year, so maybe we'll see JB on a Utah State tilt, but you can hear him call all the games for the LA Rams, and just one of the best dudes around, man. I always appreciate JB's time. All right, we are going to bring in Jason Kreis to do a little RSL as the club is back in action after 19 days off between games. Get to know Diego Gonçalves and a bunch of these new players, and what's Jay's take on what has to happen down the stretch for RSL to accomplish what they want to accomplish. It does appear that they made a bunch of moves with the future in mind. Nothing wrong with that, but does that change what we should expect in the interim? Kyle Bonagura will stop by for some more Utah football, college football as well. I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. Clearwater Distilling is the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. Do yourself and your guests, your barbecue, your watch party, and now your tailgate party a favor by snagging a bottle of their Scandalous, their Renee, or their vodka, which is now in most state liquor stores. We got the countdown of football going on, guys. We are 6 days away. Can you believe that? From the ESPN 700 tailgate. If you're looking for a place to come pre-party before Utah football, come hang out with us at the ESPN 700 tailgate. It's a great time. We have awesome food. Clearwater Distillery is going to be our VIP private tailgate liquor provider once again. Can't wait. Stay tuned. I'm sure next week we're going to be giving out a bevy of passes. I'll be there hanging out. Porter's going to be doing his pregame show there at the ESPN 700 tailgate. As their radio partner, we have Prime Real Estate. It's right outside of the stadium. We'd love to hang out with you guys. So they've got tours and tastings in their Victorian tasting room. It makes a great date night or a fun activity anytime. Authentic vintage, prohibition, prescriptions, and decor. Try their Scandalous. It's a no sugar, no additives, great tasting, grown-up version of cinnamon whiskey. It's excellent, neat, and also easy to mix. They have ultra-premium spirits, mini with a unique twist. Their Renee is a rye. Try their Josephine. Try their Lorenz. And check it out in any state liquor store, online, or take a trip to their beautiful distillery. Grab some booze, some local cigars, and immerse yourself in the Clearwater Distilling culture. More information can be found at clearwaterdistilling.com. All right, Jason Kreis, Kyle Bonagura, we got a lot to do, so don't go anywhere on a Friday. Keep it right here on ESPN 700.
White stays in the ball game, is the tailback. Daniels in the backfield. He'll backpedal to pass. Surveys, fires, outside, caught, and is it caught? Jalen Conyers there. Boy, I thought he juggled that going to the ground. They'll say that's a catch as he picks up 6 yards at the 12-yard line and a first down.
Yeah, and Utah didn't even have anyone on him at all. But, yeah, it's a catch. He got it completely in his grasp.
So first down and 10 for Arizona State on the opening drive of the ball game. To the Utah 12 they go. Turn in a toss sweep to the left-hand side. They've got a man at the 10. They've got a man at the 5. That's Pearsall. And a flag flies. I think we're going to have another holding penalty here on ASU.
Holding. Offense. Number 74.
Yep, they're going to get Casey Hatch. Another one of those hybrid wide receiver tight ends on the hold that time. That erased what would have been about a 4-yard gain inside the 10 to Pearsall. And back it up now outside the 20-yard line.
Yeah, and you hold on that edge like that, it's pretty easy for that official to see. So if you're going to hold, you got to hold on the inside, guard area.
First down and 20, back at the 22-yard line. Daniels, hands, running back, near side, running room, inside the 10. And all the way down to the 8-yard line goes Rashad White. Fabian Marks on the tackle again. He's been busy here early. pickup of 14 yards on the play. 2nd down and 6 now. Daniels empties the backfield, backpedals into the shotgun. 3 wide right, 2 wide left here for Daniels. Surveys, looks, scrambles out to his right-hand side, throws to the end zone, back of the end zone, caught and dropped. Oh, he had a man open. That was Andre Johnson who had it on the back line and dropped it. That'll bring up 3rd down.
Yeah, right now this pace that Arizona State's going at, a lot of no huddle, a lot of different people are getting involved in the offense, has clearly created a lot of confusion for Utah. You've got some guys that have been wide open, and Utah hasn't done a very good job of covering and make sure they got everyone accounted for.
They can get a first down at the Utah 2-yard line, 3rd down and 5. Daniels and White in the gun. They motion White out of the backfield. Daniels looks, surveys, throws all by himself at the goal line and in. That's a touchdown for Jalen Conyers. First touchdown of the season for Conyers. 3rd catch of the season for Conyers, and there was nobody in his area code. He was wide open.
Well, Utah's in a man coverage, and they looked like they tried to switch it off, and both guys went to the back, swinging out of the backfield, and there's just poor communication or understanding of what you're trying to do defensively, and you're going to have a player wide open.
So Christian Zendejas of the famous Zendejas kicking family on for the PAT. It's up, and it's good. And a good start for the Devils here. 9:50 to play in the first quarter. ASU marches down the field and scores a touchdown on their opening drive. They lead at 7-0. Logan Tyler, who's got 27 touchdowns this year, will tee it up. Kicking south to north here. Britton Covey back to receive this kick for Utah. 9:50 to play here in the first quarter. 7-0 Arizona State. Going to be with you tonight here for the Big O Tires broadcast booth. Bill Riley, Scott Mitchell. We'll try and get to our guy Stevenson Sylvester downstairs in just a bit. Here's the kick by Tyler. It's high and end over end, and Covey will let it go out the back of the end zone for a touchback. And so now we see Cam Rising in the Utah offense for the first time tonight. Rising in the offense put up 486 yards in total offense against USC a week ago. They ran it well. They threw it well. We talked in the pregame show, Scott, about a good start. They really need one now, down 7-0.
Yeah, and what you do offensively is you march down the field, and you answer back, and you score. Just like just give your defense a rest, and but you've got to be aggressive. You've got to go have a drive right here, and you've got to score points.
TJ Pledger in the ball game. Cam Rising with a 5-wide look on first down. He surveys the field, throws over the middle, incomplete. Trying to get that ball squeezed in. It looked like the Britton Covey on the play. There wasn't much there, and it was good coverage in the middle by the linebacker. That goes incomplete.
Yeah, and this is that aggressiveness that I was talking about. ASU played man coverage. I'm not sure how that wasn't pass interference on the other side of the field. Very, very aggressive, hands-on by these secondary players so far by ASU.
TJ Pledger begins as the tailback of the ball game. Two wide, two tights here for Utah. Pledger bouncing to the outside, shuffling his feet, and then tackled in the open field. And swarmed in the open field by that ASU defense. Darian Butler, the linebacker, there first for ASU, and now it's 3rd down and 10.
Yeah, it looked like Utah might have something on that edge, but just a nice job by ASU rallying to the ball and really stopping Utah for no gain.
So 3rd down and 10 here for Utah. Not the first two downs you want to see coming out down 7-0. They'll spread the field with 4 wide receivers. Keep Pledger, it looks like, in the ball game. Cam's going to take the snap and backpedal. Here comes the pass rush. He's going to scramble out to the outside, avoid the rush, look down the field, and keep it himself. He's got the 30, 35, 37, and out of bounds. There's the athleticism on full display from Cam Rising. A 12-yard scramble and a first down.
6 days away from one young-ish Cameron Rising under center. Of course, his little theme song, Bad Moon Rising. I got to say, I'm the first one that will crack on a bad promo, and I'm a cynical SOB, as you know. Utah football hit that one out of the park. That song rules. It fits. Like every time it's easy to get excited. That was an excellent job by the Utah football athletic department, I got to say.
The song fits. It's a good tune. And then, the Bad Moon Rising, the video that they did where they actually debuted it with Cam in Kyle's old Ford F-150, it was really good work.
It was for sure. So once a week during the football season, last year it was Bill, and this year it's Sean O'Connell, who has taken over our midday slot. They have an opportunity to sit down with Cameron, and when we have time, I want to bring that back around to you guys because I want to do my best to support Sean as he has taken over from Bill, and Bill filled that midday slot for years. So I know you guys are used to Bill. Sean's awesome. He does a great job. So we're going to replay Sean with Cam Rising. If you missed that from earlier in the week in just a moment, I do want to tell you about my friends at Advanced Window Products, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, just the best dudes. When you choose businesses, you choose the people. Put your trust in the people, not the business, right? So Advanced Window Products has been around forever. They're local. They're great people. It's a family business. The sales and installation are all in-house. There's no middleman markup. They build it, they install it, and guarantee it for life. They have high-efficiency replacement windows and doors, lots of colors to choose from, a lifetime warranty, serviced by their local team, labor, glass, and parts all included. They have transferable warranties to the next homeowner if you're selling your house. It's the highest quality custom windows in the state. You can save on your energy bill with the custom window rebates available through Dominion Energy. Great financing available, so if you don't have the budget right now, you can buy now and pay later. With the economy slowing down, if you're staying put, you can invest in your number one asset, which is your home. Improve your home's aesthetic upgrade with Utah's number one window replacement company, Advanced Window Products. Buy local and support the local economy. It's their football special going on right now. You get $2,500 off when you order 10 windows or more. Beat the rush and order today from their factory to your front door in 8 weeks or less. So if you're in the market immediately, if your home is a little bit too hot because your windows aren't necessarily what they need to be. The bad news about that is your home is about to be way too cold, and then you're going to fire up the heater. Your electric bills are going to go up. So if you're in the market right now, give them a call at 801-850-9100. However, if you anticipate being in the market in the next couple of months or so, call today to lock in their fall football special to save $2,500 off of 10 windows or more at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, in case you missed it earlier this week, a fun conversation between Sean O'Connell and the quarterback of the University of Utah, Cameron Rising.
The Rising Report is brought to you by Prices Guaranteed Doors and Windows. Every single week during this season, QB1, Cam Rising, will be here with me in studio. Cam, how are you? Welcome.
Doing good. Just happy to be here. Fired up to get this show going.
Yeah, man. Really excited. Glad to be back on local airways. Glad I get the guy, right? It's been what, 7 years since I had this show. We only been going for a month, and now we're going to talk every single week during the season. We are just over a week away from kicking this thing off. Explain for me your level of anticipation, nervousness, whatever, given what has happened all last year, given your success already in this program. Now, what we think is one final ride about to start. How you feeling?
I'm fired up. I'm just excited to really play again, get on the field. I pride myself on being on the field and just playing, being there with the guys. And just last year was hard, and kind of excited to just put that behind me and focus on this year and try to reach for the stars and do everything we possibly can to go win the conference. Being in a new conference is going to be interesting, but excited for it.
We're not going to talk a lot about last year, but want to get it out of the way. Football-wise, you probably just had a lot of time to study, watch film, become more of a student of the game than you already were. What changed for you football-wise having to sit out for a whole year?
I think the way I look at the game, kind of tried to take a different approach with how I analyze defenses, especially when you're not applying it to yourself and how you're going to get the ball out fast and stuff like that. Kind of just understanding X's and O's and why defenses do what they do and how everything kind of in football always has to make sense. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And that's what is so fun with trying to find the answers to what different looks that they give you and anything like that. And I'm glad to have Coach Ludwig right there that's paving the way, just showing me just how he does it and the best ways to do it in week in, week out. And yeah, I've just been trying to learn as much as I can.
I'm going to have a chance to talk to Coach Ludd every week also. We're going to do a little coordinator's corner. What's your relationship like with him now? So deep into it. He's got so much trust in you. I assume it goes the other way. What's your relationship like?
That's my guy. I love Coach Ludd. His first day was pretty much my visit, so he's awesome. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I understand why he's just nice and kind of quiet. Usually likes to stay out of the spotlight, but he is one of the best in the business, and just his dedication is unlike anyone else, and I just have so much respect for him, and just I'm glad he's my coach.
People ask me this all the time, like, how come it works so well between him and Kyle Whittingham? Coach Whitt after Ludd and then before Ludd, because they were, those years sandwiched in between, the offense was just not his thing. Ludwig is the answer for Kyle Whittingham in my mind. Why does it work so well between those two?
I think because they have more of an open communication. They like to talk and discuss different things. I think potentially, I didn't really work with any of the other OCs or anything, but from what I imagine, I think maybe they went against Coach Whitt a lot and didn't try to understand like the bigger picture of the game. And I think Coach Ludd does a good job making sure that when Coach Whitt wants to take a shot, we're going to take a shot, and we're going to find another play if he thinks we should run it, or just try to get a shorter gain on a third down so that we can go for it on fourth, and just put us in a lot of better situations in football, because it's not always about just trying to take shots and or just running the ball. It's finding that balance of when to do it, and that's the beautiful thing with having those two just coming together and making sure that we're doing it at the right time.
So the bulk of fall camp is behind you. You're now in effectively game preparation, so the install, I imagine, is done.
Yep.
Is Ludd still installing things that are new to you this far into your career?
Yeah, there's always new nuances that we learn. Coach Ludd studies tape like no other, so he's always trying to find new plays that we can kind of implement, new protections and all that. So yeah, there's definitely new nuances that we've been working on a lot, and I think it'll show up and really help us out this season.
I've heard you talk about this before. The Big 12 offers a couple different schematic things than what we've seen in Pac-12 defenses for the most part. But you have some familiarity because of your time at Texas, especially with the way like Iowa State does things. How much are you studying that big picture stuff in the offseason? I know you're now to Southern Utah, but were you already looking at every team in the Big 12 throughout this offseason?
I mean, kind of. A lot of times when you watch film, it's just to kind of get a feel for the players and kind of what they're trying to do schematically against who. A lot of things that we do on offense is different from a lot of the teams in the Big 12, so it's kind of hard to always implement our offense into those. So I really like to just kind of take a look, see if I can just get a little understanding of the defense, but not go overboard in studying and just try to come with 50 plays for Coach Ludwig, because I was focused on what we could do to beat this exact defense.
I would love to hear those conversations. You trying to convince Ludd to get something in there?
Oh yeah, it's a pretty common occurrence in the quarterback room.
How much are you going to be running this year? How comfortable are you running?
I feel good. I feel really good. I think I can run as much as I need to. I never really try to run as much as I do, but sometimes it just happens. Pocket breaks down. You got to get outside and run. So that's my plan. I'm not sure if we're going to have as much design quarterback run with the lead block or anything like that, but if they want to, I'm ready for it.
How many times have you gone back to the sideline after a scoring drive or whatever, and Coach Ludd or maybe Coach Whitt been like, hey, you got to protect yourself more? Because you are not shy about contact. You don't I know you try to be smart with the slides and stuff, but all of us see that for you it's about being a competitor and moving the sticks. How often have they had to be like, hey, calm down?
I don't really think I take big shots. Like I mean, I've taken some big shots that definitely are not the best situation. But I mean, it's 3rd and short, and you're in a championship game. Like, what do you expect me to do? Just slide at 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage or behind the first down line? Like, I'm not built like that. That's not something I do. But if you really watch football and watch me play, like I really don't think I take big hits when I do get hit, and you just got to learn how to fall down and how to embrace the hits that you do take.
You do have a little bit of like a, I don't know, unconventional wiggle where you're able to stop the big.
I don't know if it's unconventional, but everybody always tells me I'm sneaky fast or unconventional. I don't know what it is, but it is what it is.
Well, that's like that's the low hanging fruit, right? He's sneaky athletic because you don't look the way that a lot of the like traditional athletic quarterbacks look, right? It's the joke that the stuff that you're not allowed to say. Like why is that guy sneaky athletic, but that guy's just athletic? Does it bother you a little?
No, it is what it is. I mean,
it bothers you a little.
Funny.
That's all right.
It's funny.
Cam Rising is my guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll be talking with Cam every week throughout this Utah football season. I put out, I don't know how many questions, how many polls. We're trying to prognosticate and predict what this offense is going to look like, and the agreement seems to be that this will be more passing heavy. Is it actually going to be more pass heavy?
I think so. I mean, we have rooms full of guys that can go out and play at a high level, and any chance you have depth like that outside, you can really extend it and pass the ball downfield, and I think it'll open up for bigger runs and stuff like that when we do decide to run it. So I can see us definitely passing the ball more for sure.
A huge part of the passing game is obviously how you are protected. Correct me if I'm wrong. In camp, we were asking about like the offensive line, and it felt like early on, we got the 5 guys we want. We're trying to develop the depth behind them. It felt like it was happening really early. Is that an accurate assessment where right at the beginning of camp, you knew who your 5 guys were going to be?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I think a lot of those guys like set themselves to a higher standard during spring ball, and kind of over summer really just took advantage of every workout and everything they possibly can to be ready to go, because they did look phenomenal. And especially going against some of those D linemen that we have on our team, it's never going to be easy. And they've held their own, and I think it's probably one of the best years we've had with the offensive line just all camp.
How are the running backs coming along that weirdly in a year where you're expected to win the Big 12 Conference, college football playoff options, maybe hopes, the running game is such a constant at Utah, and that's kind of like hey, do we have what we need in this run game? There's not an obvious star, even though Makai's been incredible for this team. How's the running back room looking in your mind?
It's looking good. I think we have a lot of guys that can go out there and play, and I think it's going to be by committee, just because a lot of the guys do different things and can hit holes in different ways or run routes at different speeds, just because they're a lot faster. But yeah, I think any guy that goes in will be ready to go for whatever kind of run they need to do, and even pass protection too. And I'm fired up to have them back there blocking for us.
How often are you going to have 3 tight ends on the field, do you think?
I'm not sure, but we definitely have a room to do it. Like there's 3 guys that can go out there and win one-on-ones and just create problems for the defense. So, I mean, it'll definitely be a part of our offense.
I imagine you're not getting hit a lot, but you do have some time against the ones in camp, right? Yep. Ones versus ones, one offense versus one D?
Majority of it.
Okay, great. Who's making your life most difficult on that defense?
I mean, Zamaya Vaughn is always just a big corner, fast too. Like it's hard to run by him, especially when he can just catch up that quickly and stuff. But yeah, he studies us a lot, and he's gone against us for a few years now, so he knows a lot of our plays. So just trying to find new nuances just to beat him is always hard.
What's the conversation like inside the locker room on the expectation front, right? You know how talented this roster is. You know how you have important players in important positions with a lot of experience, yourself included, but you're supposed to stay focused on Southern Utah, et cetera. So what are the conversations like in the locker room on what you guys think you can achieve this year?
I mean, we're talking about Big 12 champions and going to the college football playoff. That's our goal. That's our focus, doing everything we possibly can to get ready for that. And we're kind of starting to switch to the just 1-0 mentality and just focusing on that. That's the goal, and that's what you got to do to get through a championship season. I think it's going to be like 14 or 15 games to get to the national championship.
Yeah.
So it's a long season, so you just got to take it 1 week at a time and just be ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's 15 if you get the first round playoff bye.
Yeah.
Like if you win the championship.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is.
It's a long season.
No doubt.
What are the similarities or differences in the locker room, the team culture with this particular group and the groups that won Pac-12 championships?
I think a lot of those teams, kind of like the 21 and 22, like we were just starting to develop that higher standard and making sure that every group's coming along for the ride and doing it at a high level. And I think that just has started earlier and earlier for us each and every season. Guys are trying to set the standard, and the captains are doing a great job making sure that they're leading, doing everything they possibly can to bring the groups with them. And that's where I think the biggest difference has been.
Cam Rising for a few more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I said we're not going to talk a lot about last year, and I promise we won't. Last year was, for me, one of the more impressive coaching jobs I have seen this staff do.
Yeah.
Because of all the adversity that was dealt with, all the injuries, and still found a way to win 8 games, still found a way to win important games at half strength in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Did that help develop more trust between the coaching staff and the team, or did that change anything between the coaching staff and the team when, I don't know, just you were able to do it even at a compromised roster?
I'm not sure, but I do think that like opened a lot of players' eyes, being like, dang, like we're just right there. We could have won a lot of those games that we did lose and stuff like that. And just, yeah, I mean, I've always had confidence in the coaches and everything that they do. I know that they're trying to put us in the best position. They do 100-hour weeks just to make sure that we're running everything that we possibly can. That's going to put us in the best position. So yeah, I think the guys already kind of knew that. So we bought in last year, and that's the reason why we were so successful and able to get 8 wins.
BYU back on the schedule as a conference opponent.
Yeah.
You've done just about everything a quarterback can do in a Utah football uniform, but because of the scheduling situation, you haven't had a chance to beat BYU yet.
Yep.
You ready to check that box?
That is the box that I'm looking forward to checking the most this year, I think. Yeah, for sure.
It's funny because you didn't grow up in Utah, right? Yeah. You came in from Texas to the program, but you seem to have a pretty deep understanding, even though you haven't played BYU a bunch of times, of how significant the rivalry is, and you've clearly adopted that in your own self. How and why?
It kind of stems back. One of my dad's buddies actually went to BYU a long time ago, and he actually ended up getting kicked out.
Oh.
And I found out the reasons he got kicked out, and I was like, wow, like that's just not a place I'd ever imagined myself going, you know, and kind of just have always had a little weird connection to BYU. Never really
like a little
was an option for me out of college or coming to college or anything like that. Like, yeah, just never was a fan, and then came here and just got 10 times worse.
Yeah. We were going over on a show last week. We were going over the record books and your place in the record books. And hey, can this guy beat these numbers? Do you know what those numbers are? Do you know how many yards you need to have, how many touchdowns you need to have to be atop the Utah record books?
Not exactly, no.
Do you want to know? Do you care about that?
I mean, I'm not opposed to taking some records. You know?
Okay, 3,409 yards passing this year.
409 yards.
3409.
Yep.
To get Scott Mitchell's career passing record.
Wow.
24 touchdown passes.
That we can do for sure.
To take that same. And then because of your success in rushing the ball, the all-purpose touchdowns, I think you only need like 17. So if you rush and throw for a combined 17 touchdowns this year, you're atop the record books. Wow. So you're going to leave this universe.
Bar, yeah.
Yeah, we think the conclusion when we were looking at all these, it seems like you're going to be atop the record books in a lot of these categories.
I hope so. I've been here for quite a while.
But, okay, you've been here.
But I haven't played.
But you haven't played. Like, that's something that I think gets lost in the conversation. Like, oh, he's been here for 7 years. This is your 4th year.
Yeah. Really,
of actually playing because of a lot of different reasons.
For sure.
So there's no asterisks. No. It's a 4-year career.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to be putting an asterisk next to it, so it is what it is. Yeah.
Do you want to be talked about as the greatest quarterback in Utah football history?
I mean, who doesn't want that? Like, anytime you can you come to a university like this that has so many great quarterbacks, just you have so much respect for them. If you can be even mentioned in their name, that's an honor, and just to be even considered as one of the greatest would be a great honor, and I just would be happy with that kind of career for sure.
All right, we're giving away FightCon tickets. FightCon's coming the same day that the UFC comes on October 5th.
Oh, wow.
To Salt Lake City. That's a bye week for you.
Yeah.
So, hopefully we can see you out of both of those. If you had to have, like, Dark Alley, one guy on your team to fight alongside you, and you got to name one. I ask as many people as I can this question because it always fascinates me if I get the same name out of a lot of people's mouths.
One guy on the team, life or death. Big Polynesian.
It's got to be, right?
For sure. Probably Junior or Keanu. Those guys, they seem nasty. They seem like they'll do anything to win a fight. So, yeah, I'd definitely take one of those two guys.
All right. That's to me, that feels like as high a compliment as you can pay to a D lineman, especially.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those guys are nasty. They create havoc, and yeah, I think they would be able to hold their own in that alley.
What should we expect from Southern Utah?
They're going to play a lot of quarters and a lot of cover 3 and all that, and they do some really good things. And we'll be facing a couple of old Utes, Wiz and LPJ. So fired up to see those guys and play against them, and just really looking forward to getting back on the field and playing.
Last thing before I let you go, Isaac Wilson is your backup.
Yep.
There's some other guys in that room that we know are very capable quarterbacks. What is your role in your relationship in bringing those guys along? Because obviously you got your own craft to worry about, but if anything should happen, you want to make sure the team is still set up for success. So how active a role do you take there?
I just try to ask questions, questions that I think would help the room understand things better. Just try to give my 2 cents with any play, just to if it can help them at all, I'll try and do it. And I think they've been doing a great job just listening to when I give those little tidbits of information, just because sometimes I like to simplify as much as I possibly can so that I can have a better understanding of the grand scheme of things. And yeah, hopefully they've been doing a great job just making sure that they listen and apply it to their game.
Cam, appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
Glad that we're going to be doing it every week throughout the season. That's the starting quarterback for your University of Utah football team, Cameron Rising, brought to you by Prices Guaranteed Doors and Windows. We'll hear from him every single week on the Sean O'Connell Show.
All right, there you go. So last year it was Riles, the conversation with Cam. This year it's going to be Sean. Nobody asked us, but what, afternoon drive?
Yeah, what the hell?
Is it afternoon drive? Is that what it is?
Yeah, they're apparently practicing usually during the afternoons, but we'll get up there.
But ultimately, shouldn't doing interviews on the highest rated sports show in the market, Afternoon Drive on ESPN 7 Home of the Utes, shouldn't they put a little bit more emphasis on doing media during the afternoons as opposed to practicing, or am I up in the night?
That's where I agree with you. Is this is the show. This is the highest rated show in the state by a wide margin. One of the higher rated shows in the West.
Maybe in the world. Maybe in the world.
Oh,
Who knows? Hey, it's Trump's America. You say whatever you want. Highest rated show in the world.
Biggest show,
It's
the best
huge.
show.
People are saying.
It is the best show.
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to. But here's the thing.
Best guests.
Indeed.
Smartest guests.
Yeah, there's no doubt. People are saying. I want to support Sean because I know there are probably Ute fans that are missing Bill middays. And Sean's really good, man. He's a very talented host. And so we're going to do our best to bring back some elements from his show into our space so you guys can get to know him a little bit better. It's funny. Our competitor is on their third iteration of an afternoon drive since I took the job over here. And every time I'm hearing them make a change, I'm like, just don't hire Sean. That's the one guy that I didn't want them to get. I'd still beat him. But he's the one guy that I thought, could probably go head to head. So when Bill left and Steve called, he said, who's the guy? I said, there's one guy. Go get him. And it's Sean.
Yeah. It was clear. And the timing, right? With the Pac-12 going down, Sean obviously on Sirius XM. He's a guy who we tried to get on our station week in, week out, because we know the value he brings to the market, the versatility he has on air, and yeah, even in this studio when that all went down. Of course, it's always a little weird when big changes happen at work. but it kind of seemed like it was already a done deal before it was really a done deal. So that gives you a little insight into how easy the decision was to bring in one Sean O'Connor.
Can the listeners see me stretch during the break on YouTube?
No, they're usually listening to a Utah football game of past.
Okay.
But who knows? That's all dependent on me hitting this button and then hitting that button and then hitting that button and then hitting that button.
Well, as you know,
and then that button.
As you know, because you can see it through the window, during the break, I usually like to stretch.
Right.
Sometimes I lay down.
Sometimes
I just wonder if the listeners, because that's probably an awkward look for me, if the listeners are tuning in, watching me just get my lower back loose.
Idea, reach out back to our friends at Stretch Zone and just stretch during the break. We can get it sponsored.
Aren't they still on the station?
I'm an idea guy.
You are an idea guy. Aren't they still on the station?
In some form.
Okay. Anyway, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. The conversation with Cam, the Rising Report, you can hear it on Sean's show all year long, once a week. So good stuff for our station and good stuff with Sean. So 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We're going to do a little soccer with Jason Christ coming up, and then more college football with Kyle Bonagura. So keep it right here. Happy Friday, ESPN 700.
Rashad White, Ryan Thompson back deep to receive this kick from Jordan Noyes. Last time Rashad White wanted to run it out, but he called a fair catch first. We'll see if he tries to bring this one out. Jordan Noyes has been good this year on PATs and kickoffs. He's got 10 touchbacks on the year so far, does the 29-year-old Jordan Noyes. He'll approach it from north to south, put his right foot into it, drive it high and end over end, and Rashad White will not try to bring this one out. And Jaden Daniels and the Devils will begin 1st and 10 at their own 25-yard line. Oftentimes, Scott, you can make adjustments in game. You always do it, especially after a first drive of the ball game. Well, what do you want to see Utah do differently defensively this time around?
It just feels like they're trying to do too much, and the touchdown was the perfect example. Stick with something, commit to it, and just play 100%. Utah seems to be playing a little too tentative.
Arizona State will open with an empty set here. Daniels in the shotgun. And 4-5 wide receivers from their own 25-yard line. Daniels throwing the flanker screen to the inside, and it's dropped. Trying to get that ball on the inside. We'll see who that was. That they were trying to get that ball to. That was Elijah Badger. And he just had it and dropped it. Wasn't going to go for much anyway, those guys.
No, Utah's seen enough of this bubble screen between all these teams in Pac-12. They should be able to defend it by now.
So 2nd down and 10. Tailback in the backfield. Now they'll motion him out. That's Tranum. Daniels surveys, looks, tries to scramble, tripped up, hit, and dropped at about the 32, 33-yard line. They had him initially, and then Nephi Sewell, who's still working on that bum ankle, got him at the 32, so 3rd down and 3 coming up.
And I like that Jaden Daniels has been hit 3 or 4 times early in this game running the ball, and that'll wear you down after a certain period of time.
Tranum stays in. Devils only had 1 3rd down. They converted it on their opening drive. Daniels in the gun, movement up front. That's going to go on the right side of that offensive line. They're going to get Ben Scott, the right tackle, moving that time, and Utah will back him up 5 yards right here. 3rd and 3 becomes 3rd down and 8.
Yeah, and this is where this crowd really has to get involved in this football game. Make it tough for them to hear.
Daniels spreads the field, back in the backfield, Rashad White. Utah showing pressure up front. Now Daniels is going to change the play. 6 on the play clock. 5 on the play clock. 2 on the play clock. Takes the snap, backpedals to pass. Here comes the pressure. It's out in the open field, and Rashad White dropped immediately. Tremendous coverage in the flat that time by the Utah defense. Amaya Vaughn came up to make the stop on the play, and that'll bring up 4th down.
Yeah, see, now the defense is coordinated here. Great job by Vaughn, though, just to tackle right as the receiver hit the ball. But a lot of that is just the noise. It's just hard to communicate what you want to do there, and it just took a lot of time.
Eddie Shaplitsky on to punt here for ASU, averaging about 39 yards a kick on the year. Britton Covey stands at his own 22. Shaplitsky, no pressure on him, hangs one high, and Covey's going to come up and fair catch it, looking into the lights, and takes it at about the 28-yard line. And that's where Utah will take over 1st and 10. 2:39 to play here in the first quarter. Utah 7 and Arizona State 7. So Utah's offense will come out. They'll start 1st and 10 from their own 28-yard line. Cam Rising. I said this to Scott. We may have the best two dual-threat quarterbacks in the conference playing here tonight. I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson's very good too, but I'm not sure he throws it quite as well as both Rising and Daniels do.
I just like that Daniels has taken some shots early on in this game when he's decided to run.
Two tights, two wides, and Tavion Thomas behind Cam Rising on 1st and 10. They hand it to Tavion, getting forward, pushing the pile, and getting out to about the 32. 4-yard gain on 1st down for Tavion Thomas. Linebacker Kyle Soley, the redshirt senior, whose younger brother Connor is also a linebacker on this team, made the stop.
See, and that's a nice play. That's that straight-ahead run right there where you just get somebody on everybody, and Tavion Thomas just by himself will give you 2 yards. So a very nice design play here for Utah, 1st down.
Thomas checks out. TJ Pledger checks in on 2nd down and 6. Too tight, too wide here for Utah. They'll bring a tight end across the formation, strength to the right-hand side now. Rising under center, turns, and play action rolls. He's got lots of time. He looks down the field, and he threw that one out of bounds. It was double coverage, and it's a good thing he threw that ball out of bounds. He was trying to get it to Brand Keithy, but Keithy was well covered.
Yeah, and Bailey actually was running a post over the middle of the field. If he could have just given it a little bit of time here, he might have had him.
So Utah tonight, 2 out of 2 on 3rd down. They're trying to convert here. 3rd down and 6. They throw it long again, looking up that sideline, overshooting Keithy. Make it Fotheringham.
Was I wrong about
UB40?
I may
so 2 quick shots up the sideline.
UB40 fans everywhere an apology. I went in the studio and I said to you, all right, it's Jason today. It's Jay. Let's get the corniest UB40 song we can find. And you fired up like 5 of them, and they were all pretty good. Am I the problem here? Was I wrong about UB40?
Yeah, I think that the one time I played their intro, you thought I was trying to be like funny, trying to be corny, because we were bringing Jason on. Now, I like UB40. Jason likes UB40. My parents like UB40. My aunt likes UB40. I think you're the one here.
I'm the issue. And you know what? I can stand up and admit that. So just a couple of guys chopping it up about footy on a Friday, jamming out to a little UB40. Jason Kreis is our guest. Jay, I'm raising my hand. I was wrong. You were right. Hope you enjoy that.
I appreciate that, Spence. I really do. But I can tell you it's not a resounding endorsement when your co-host is talking, his parents and his aunt are fans. That's not a big help.
Well, I just, ever since I found out this was your favorite band, I have been judging you for 20 years. And so I'm standing up here on a Friday saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You were right.
Is that the only judgment you've made of me?
We'll leave that for off air, right? Let's not go into that on the interview today. You know you're my guy. Happy Friday, pal. How we doing?
We're doing good. Yeah, doing good. Got a lot on my plate lately, but I'm ready for another RSL game. I don't know about you.
Oh, for sure. And we'll get to the match. 19 days, man. It's crazy how long it's been. And we'll get to that. We'll get to the match coming up, obviously. But you referenced you have been a busy boy, and the transfer window has come and gone. I would say from my vantage point and from most of the things I've read and listened to, you are being applauded. Now, of course, we'll have to see what happens. But let's just start from the Jason Kreis 30,000-foot view. 5 players in, few players gone, some cash in your pocket. How are you guys feeling in the front office right now?
I think we feel pretty good. I think we feel like we've improved the team in a major way. I think Kurt needs to take the majority of the credit because he's done the majority of the lift to bring all these players in and to make the sales on the ones going out. So we have been tasked with that specific objective of trying to develop players, to sell them on, and then to to refuel and reprime the pump. And so I think, ultimately bringing the 5 players in that we have in this window, we feel it's been a very successful window for us. But as you've alluded to, the proof is always in the pudding. So when we start to see these guys' contributions in the games, will end up that decision and that judgment will then be probably properly made.
Let's see how to ask this. Is there a feeling that you guys may have, and I don't know, I'm just asking, is there a feeling you guys may have sacrificed some immediate rewards for a long-term reward, if that makes sense? Is there anything there, Jay?
Well, are you speaking to Andres Gomez situation specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, you've been good and Kurt has been good, and I understand the ownership group's desire to, move players on for a premium. I get the business model, but it's still in my head where it's like you guys were really good. Obviously, the form had not necessarily been what it was to start, but I think there were a lot of people who believed, and maybe you still are. That's why I'm asking the question the way I'm asking it. But if the team was as is, you guys, it felt like a lot of people thought you could compete for trophies. Maybe you still can. I'm just asking out of curiosity, do you feel like maybe you sacrificed short-term rewards for a long-term vision?
No, I really don't. In particular, I think we've spoken about this the last time or maybe the time before that I was on. It is our feeling, and our meaning the people that are looking a little deeper than just looking at the score line. It has been our feeling that for the past probably 8 games, the team has started to take a little bit of a downturn. And we looked into that and we tried to address why that was. That we came back with were that the team wasn't deep enough, and that the team was starting to become a little too individualistic. We had a few players, and Mr. Gomez would be one of them, that was looking to, pad his statistics. That was more important to him than it was the team's success. And we got by and we skated by through some of that and getting some results. But in the last couple of games, we really got punished for it. And so we ultimately made the decision that we wanted to be a team that was a little bit more team aware, a little bit more team centric, put the team first and do what's necessary in your position to help the group. And so, we feel honestly that we may have a player that does a better job for the team going forward than even Andres was doing. So yes, the statistics that he was putting up were absolutely fantastic, but the number of other things that were hurting us weren't so visible or weren't so calculable from a statistical point of view, were too high. And also speaks to a lot of the other players feeling like there was a fatigue factor that was there because we didn't have enough depth, and there was a complacency factor that was there also because we didn't have enough strong depth. So, we feel like we have made some really good additions to the team to handle all 3 of those aspects that we felt were leading towards the poor results in the poor performances in the last 8 games.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I always appreciate, when we can get some insight as far as what's happening, outside of what we can see with the naked eye, because you guys, nobody knows the locker room like the coach. Nobody knows the tone and tenor of the team like the front office. So that's good insight. I wonder, because we had Pablo on this week, when it comes to your endeavor to recruit players and, tell your story of the club ethos and tell your story of what you can do for them. The Andres Gomez story has to be a positive one for you to share with other young players, right? Like, how much of a motivation is it when you have a successful story like this to utilize the ability to go to young players and say, well, look what we did for him. We can do that for you, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, that's 1,000% true. And ultimately, we are in a league where a lot of the very highest talent that is brought into the league is coming from South America. And for South Americans, places like Mexico and the U.S. are the majority of the time not going to be their final stop. It's not going to be the pinnacle of their goals and the pinnacle of their dreams. That's going to be in Europe. That's where the biggest money is, and that's where the biggest competitions are. And that's what gets them in their national team on a regular team basis as well. So, now that we have made those first couple of, I think, sales, we have one that's, a Mexican American that went to the biggest club in Mexico. And now we have a South American that's come here, and in short order, we've sent him to Europe. it's about proof of concept. And so you've got it right. Now we can, with a straight face, say that we are a club that has the ability to help players, to develop them, to play them here, and then to move them on in a pretty quick fashion.
So when it comes to the dynamic of finding the right partner, you've sent Andres over to France. How much of that is up, if at all, to the player and his rep? I mean, is it a situation like oftentimes in other sports, a really good player will go to the front office and say, hey, the Kevin Garnett example comes to mind. When he went to Minnesota, he said, I've given you 10 years. I want to win a championship. Trade me to Boston, which they did. Is there anything there where Andres and his reps go find a club that they want you to negotiate with, or is this simply you guys going out on your own to find the best deal for the club?
It definitely happens both ways. It's not like the trading that used to happen in MLS. It still happens in MLS, by the way, where oftentimes you'll make a trade and a player will have no idea about it and he has no say. But for any type of transfer, any type of loan agreement that you have to send a player out, the player has to agree to the deal. So the player has to sort out his compensation with the club that he's going to, as well as the transfer fee has to be negotiated between clubs. So there are multiple parties involved, and it does happen both ways, where a club can go out and basically say to his contacts, we are thinking about moving this player. If the price is right, we would consider it. But it also happens that agents will want that to happen. And there's a particular reason for that as well, because agents get fees anytime their players transfer. So there's a long-term benefit of the player being in a bigger market and making more money, and he gets a percentage of that, but he also gets a percentage or a fee anytime a player moves.
So I know, and Kurt's been very transparent on this show about the potential of moving on, not moving off of Diego, but moving him on as well for a premium and for a very nice price. How close were you guys to doing that, and what ultimately led you to decide to keep Diego for the time being?
Yeah, I would say that I don't know the particulars about whether or not we were close, Spence, but what I would say is that I feel at some moment in time, the two positions will become aligned, and that Diego's aspirations are to play in Europe. Our aspirations are to sell young players, develop and sell young players. We also have a third objective, right, which is to win something. So, at the moment, I don't think that the valuations would have added up in this transfer window for it to make sense for us, because we feel that Diego is so important to move us towards that objective to win something. So, this offseason, maybe that looks different. And maybe that looks different, but the valuation doesn't add up. So a lot of things have to be aligned for it all to come together. And it definitely wasn't going to be this summer window.
So where are we at with the process? And Pablo was again also very transparent about coming up against San Jose. I believe he said every player, maybe outside of Dominic, would be available. Is that your understanding? Because these processes are Garth always used to talk about this, how it's just, the process to get some of these players, the visa situations, the paperwork, the stamps, sometimes there's a lot more than meets the eye. So who will be available as far as these new players? And we've already seen some of them, but the players we haven't seen coming up against San Jose, who could we potentially see, Jay?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That process is mind-numbing and very frustrating. And it is actually something that has been considered now a special project. So I'm overseeing it. So I have particular personal knowledge about how frustrating it can be. And it's just like anything else. You're at the whim of the government. And so sometimes the government moves slow and sometimes the government will move fast. But fortunately for us, we've had a very, very good run here over the past couple of weeks, and everybody that we've brought in will be available for this game apart from Dominic Marsouk. And Dominic is also going to be very close, and we're very hopeful he'll be available next week. So the wins have been in our favor, and that will mean that Diogo Gonçalves and Lachlan Brook and Javane Brown, all three of the ones that have not been available before, will all be available for this game.
Do you have any insight as to, whether or not we're going to see these new players start? Is that completely up to Pablo? Any thoughts in that direction?
Yeah, that's, it was always very clear for me. It's always very clear for Pablo's situation. The front office is in charge of, making the signings on the players, have players come in and come out. And it is the coaching staff's decisions about whether or not the players start, come off the bench, or not at all. So that's 100% Pablo's decision.
All right. So according to, and I don't know how accurate this is, but there's a website, Transfer Market, that talks about spend in MLS. Prior to the window, according to this website, you guys were 29th, and now you're 10th. And that doesn't even include, according to what I'm reading on the Tribune, the cash you received from Andres and Fidel. What does that say to RSL Nation about this new ownership group and their willingness to do what it takes to not just put a good product on the field now, but potentially build the foundation of something that could be special for a long time?
Yeah, I think it's, I couldn't say that I had any knowledge of this before I came, but was pretty quickly apparent to me that last year they became very aggressive in the transfer market, became very aggressive about finding a different level of quality of player to bring to Real Salt Lake. And they have continued to do so, both in the winter transfer window with guys like Crooks, and now again in this summer transfer window, we've brought in we've paid 3 transfer fees for players, totaling multiple millions of dollars. So I think the ownership has made their intent very clear, and I think it's a fantastic place to be right now, to be working for Real Salt Lake and to be a fan of Real Salt Lake.
Pretty early on in Emeka Nelly's, stint with the club, not stint, he's still there, but pretty early on in his career, Pablo came on the show, and before I knew anything about him, he pointed out Emeka as a player to keep an eye on. And it became pretty apparent pretty quickly. And, obviously injuries are horrible, and the Ruiz injury sucked, but it did give Emeka a chance to show you guys who he is. He's been a guest a couple of times. What a sweet kid. I mean, he's just a nice person to talk to, very intelligent, of course. But you guys have locked him up with an extension because he was making sports talk radio producer money at the time. And so talk about the decision to lock in Emeka, some thoughts on the type of player he is, and a thought for RSL fans about him being here for at least a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, Emeka's just what a fantastic story, because in this day and age in MLS, it's very few and far between guys that come from the college draft and succeed. And when I say succeed, I mean like guys that just can have a career in MLS for multiple years. And now you have a player that RSL has drafted who's come in and shown himself to be a starting level player for our team week in and week out, but also, darn close to kind of all-star quality, in my opinion, and also in Pablo's, as he expressed pretty cleanly. So, yeah, I think it's a fantastic story. I think he's a model citizen. He's the model of a Real Salt Lake player because he always sacrifices for the team. He just gives and gives and gives everything that he can. And so I'm really, really pleased that we were able to reach a fantastic deal for both parties to keep Emeka here for a long time. And I think that we're going to see him I really do feel strongly that he's going to take on more and more of a leadership role in this group moving forward.
I know it's up to Pablo, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are with Andres leaving as far as how you guys plan to fill that hole, because certainly the production was, and you were good to kind of explain some of the things that motivated you guys to add some depth and potentially, addition by subtraction. I'm not, putting words in your mouth, but the contingency plan in place to kind of make up for the production that Andres does leave behind. What does that look like, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it looks like more players being involved in the scoreline. At the moment we've had, Chicho, Andres, and then Diego kind of a third contributor there. And I think obviously any player that we bring in, the Diego Gonçalves, the Lachlan Brooks, the Dominic Mark-Sukes, these guys need to show up on the scoreline. There's no doubt about it. So Dominic is the one that's position oriented. It's very similar. And that's the one we'll be looking at to play the position that Andres played. The real question is, how will Pablo handle it this weekend? And we've seen that Andres was just suspended a couple games ago against LAFC, and he went with, I believe it was Michael Chang for that game. So Chang would be a candidate, as would Benji Michel, as would Anderson Julio, because Anderson won't be needed at the 9 position as he was against LAFC. So there's several options there.
Now, I think it's easy to look at the Matt Crooks spot as something where maybe Crooks goes to the bench, and again, up to Pablo entirely. But with what you paid, Diogo to play for you guys, and I think Crooks in spots has been really, really good. I think there's some other times that maybe you look to upgrade, that spot specifically. Give me your thoughts on what all these transactions mean for Matt Crooks.
Yeah, it's a situation where there's going to be competition. There's going to be competition really in all three of those spots underneath Chicho for who is in form and who is producing right now and who is producing every day in training. And that's what we feel like we needed. We feel like we needed a little bit more of an impetus to say, guys, you got to keep doing it week in and week out. And if you don't, next man up. Which doesn't mean that, you're going to be put in some sort of basement or cellar forever. It just means at this moment that other guy's going to get the chance and the opportunity, and we need goals and assists out of these positions. And look, a guy like Matt Crooks understands that. You don't play at the level that he was playing in England and not have competition for your spot every single week. It's fierce over there. I know that for sure.
So tell me about San Jose. They're not high on the table, safe to say. They're literally last. But, this is a weird league, man. Weird things happen all the time. But 9 games left, Jay, 6 at home. 3's probably a premium tomorrow. What's the challenge you guys have welcoming in San Jose?
Yeah, the thing about San Jose, it's interesting, is because they are in last place at the moment, but they also had a little bit of a deep run in Leagues Cup, that beating a Mexican team 5-0 just 2 games ago, and then lost to eventual finalists LAFC, but got out of their group. We didn't. So, you could argue that they may be in a little bit better run of form than Real Salt Lake. And so as you rightly identified, they have that, but they also, this is MLS. And if you go into any game thinking that you've got some sort of innate ability or innate, you're innately better than your opponent, you're 9 times out of 10, you're walking out with a loss. So you have that, but I think we also have something else here, which is that we need to get back to being ourselves. We need to get back to understanding what it is, what the effort looks like, and what all the details look like that lead to our winning, because we got away from that. And so I hope that the group is supremely motivated to get back on the right track, as well as the fact now we have an end in sight, right? There's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's 9 more games. And so oftentimes in the middle of the season, you stop seeing that light and you go through some doldrums. So we've got that light. We've got 9 really important games, and we need to do everything we can to put ourselves in the best position to make a deep run in the playoffs.
So, it's been a up and down season, mostly up, but the down part is well documented for Chicho. For me, I think number 9 should still be retired, but whatever, moving on from that. I wonder, from your vantage point, that's a little inside, how he has responded to the adversity that came his way, how he's responded. Because, look, I've said this before, it feels like he's as big of a star as any player we've ever had here, even though, as I came up with a number of years ago, I believe the team is the star. But how has he responded to the adversity? How has he responded to the new teammates? And how would you articulate how ready he is down the stretch to recapture what he was doing prior to some of the adversity that came his way?
Yeah, I'm going to start by saying, this has been difficult for him, as it would be for any player, any person, to be completely honest. And I think through it all, I kept seeing a guy showing up and smiling and look like he's happy to be here and happy to have this job and happy to have this opportunity to work so hard for his career every single day. So I'm continue to be amazed at what I see as a top quality character guy. And now, truthfully, it's time for us to see. I just don't think the sample size was big enough with the couple of games or the one game that he was available for coming off the bench against Houston. And so now he has the answers to that. I don't have the answers to how he's going to react to that and, how he's going to finish the season. But I think it's massively important. If you want to be an MVP of the league and if you want to be an MVP of the team and if you want to be the guy that everybody writes home about, this is the time to do it. No doubt about it.
All right, Jay, before I set you loose, 19 days off between games. I would imagine, and you know this from a player's perspective, that can get monotonous when you're training, when you're staying in form and you're staying fit, and you have to do all the things to be a top-tier, in-shape soccer player. I can imagine without games, that's probably pretty challenging from a player's perspective. Take us behind the scenes a little bit. What do you guys feel like you accomplished in what Pablo called like a mini training camp to get ready for the stretch run?
Yeah, it is very difficult. It's very difficult for everybody. Difficult coaches, difficult players, difficult to keep your focus, difficult to keep working hard. And the hope was we went into it with that sort of mini preseason mentality and a time to get back to all the details and a time to understand who we are and how we win. And that's the hope, is that we display that right away. And I think things can either go two ways tomorrow night. It can go that we look really, really rusty for some time, or it can look like we've just let the dogs out of the cage and they're ready to pounce. And I'm certainly hoping for the latter.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate the time. Best of luck, not just tomorrow, but down the stretch run. And congrats on what appears to be a super successful summer transfer window. I know you've been busy. Go get 3 tomorrow, okay?
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Be good.
All right, Jason Kreis. RSL back in action coming up tomorrow against San Jose. San Jose is in last place by a long shot. They've won 4 games. They've lost 19, and they've tied 2. Their goal differential is minus 30. Quick math, that's not good. RSL, third place in the West. 3 tomorrow's got to be paramount. So it's 7:30 Apple TV. Check it out. All right, coming up next, back to some college football. Kyle Bonagura is our guest. More college football in the 5 o'clock hour. You got about 90 minutes of college football to take you home on a Friday here on The Drive. So keep it right here on ESPN 700.
First down, handoff, outside, having the edge is Trainum, and he's out of bounds after a 12-yard gain to the 45-yard line. He just kept bouncing and bouncing that thing outside to the left, and he found some open space and picked up 12 for a first down.
Yeah, and they'll do this, quite a bit, and they're really good at kind of setting up that end where it looks like it's going to come off tackle, and you have this end who's got the force, and the back's just going to outspeed him around that edge.
Trainum stays in the ball game. They're pistol formation now with 2 wide receivers and 2 tight ends. Handoff again, this time Trainum straight ahead, picks up about 3 to the 48-yard line. Devin Kaufusi makes the tackle as we dip under a minute to play here in the first quarter, tied at 7 apiece.
And here you've got this ASU team that kind of threw it early, but now they've kind of settled into saying, all right, we're gonna try to run the ball here and establish the line of scrimmage.
Second down and 7 for ASU, just on their side of midfield here. Waning seconds of the first quarter. Daniels operating out of the shotgun. 4-man rush here for Utah. Plenty of time for Daniels. Getting those happy feet dancing and roaming to the outside. Now Jaden Daniels trying to get to the edge. He's got the 50, spins, and may fall forward for a first down. He took a hit. He'll be about a yard shy. He got to the Utah 45-yard line. There just wasn't anybody out there to contain him when he began that run.
Yeah, and Utah, did a great job of keeping him in the pocket there. And again, Jaden Daniels, he makes a play, but he pays for it. He got hit pretty hard.
That will take us to the end of the first quarter. It'll be 3rd down and 1. After 1 quarter of football, it's Utah 7 and Arizona State 7. 3rd down and 1 for ASU. The Utah 45-yard line. Trainum the back of the backfield. They'll even operate with a fullback, H-back, Casey Hatch. As Daniels goes under center, Utah with 7, now 8 at the line of scrimmage. Daniels, hands, Trainum, stacked up, pushes through, gets first down yardage, down to about the 42-yard line. He needed 1, he picked up almost 4. And that'll be a first down for ASU. Just straight ahead football that time. And the drive stays alive here for the Devils.
Yeah, and Bishop almost had it. He came around the edge. He's really close to stopping the back in the backfield.
Trainum is the back, and Daniels operates out of the gun here on 1st and 10 from the Utah 42-yard line. 3 wide receivers left here for Daniels. They'll hand it again. Trainum Diving and weaving and bobbing and diving forward, picks up a yard, maybe 2 to the 41-yard line. It'll be a 1-yard gain. Wasn't a whole lot there that time. That was one of those reads where you kind of felt like Daniels might keep it. He didn't. And Tennessee Putu down made the tackle.
Yeah, but again, really nice job. Utah's kind of settled into understanding where their gaps are and where they need to be, and against this run, and they're playing downhill.
3 wide receivers now on 2nd down and 9. Rashad White checks back in the ball game. Motion across the formation here for ASU. Jaden Daniels wants the snap, and now he backpedals. Lots of time pumping, looking, scrambling to the outside. There's a flag down, and he gets back to the line of scrimmage. It'll be no gain for Daniels, and we may have a hold or a leg whip. Nope, it's going to be a hold on ASU. Karene Reed ultimately made the tackle on the play, but that's another penalty. This is the most penalized team in the Pac-12, Scott, and we're seeing why early on.
Yeah, and Mika's way held there, and the leg whip is kind of as a result of being held.
So 2nd down, and we'll call it about 19 yards to go. Back across midfield it goes to the ASU 49-yard line. 2 receivers left, 1 receiver right, tight end in the left slot. Rashad White in the backfield. Strength on the right-hand side now for ASU. Daniels backpedals into the gun, and he'll pass. Utah bringing a blitz this time. Daniels looking, firing over the middle. It's caught there. Down to the 40, down to the 37-yard line goes ASU. That was Rashad White kind of looping out of the backfield to make the catch. Mika Tafua on the tackle. ASU's now going to go with a little tempo, it looks like, on 3rd down and 7.
Yeah, and that last play was what Sly talked about in the pregame, where you got to that check down, you got to get the back tackled, and Utah didn't do a very good job of that.
3rd down and 7 for the Devils from the Utah 39-yard line. Crowd getting loud here at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Pressure up front being shown by the Utes. Daniels in the gun. He'll pass. Here comes the blitz. He'll run away from it. He'll scramble and look down the field. He'll dump it off, and that will be shy of 1st down yardage. And the ball comes out. The ball's out. Does Utah have it? Utah football. Hodges fumbled it. Ellis came up with it. The son of Luther Ellis recovers the fumble, and Utah's forced the first turnover of the night.
Well, I bet Luther would be pretty happy here. Great job, Karene Reed there. Makes Daniels flutter out of the pocket, and then a really nice open field tackle here. And, of course, right on the ball. Boom, right there. Comes out. Maybe not a fumble. Who knows? But
we'll see. Caden Ellis fell on it. 12:37 to play in the first half. Might be Utah football.
One hour from right now, Chris Camerani from The Athletic wrote a good piece on the Utes this week. Little Birdie tells me he's working on a project based off of our bizarre interview with our guy Trevor Riley earlier this week. Trevor currently is in Hawaii. He watched the Canoeing World Championships after resigning from Colorado, after he went to Saudi Arabia to try to get the Public Investment Fund to invest in NIL. That's a sentence. It's a real thing. Our next guest, well, he used to cover Pac-12 football. He does soccer, too. He's a staff writer over at ESPN. He is Kyle Bonagura back on the drive. Kyle, happy Friday, buddy. How we doing?
Doing great. Looking forward to my last weekend before the season really gets going.
So what's the scope of the new responsibilities? I mean, you were on the Pac-12 beat for ESPN. What's the new beat for you this fall?
Yeah, so it's a lot of the same. It's an interesting question because I've been getting that a lot. What I keep saying is that, look, all the teams that were in the Pac-12 are still playing football, right? And so I'll still kind of monitor a lot of the teams that are in the western part of the country. Just I live out here, so it kind of makes sense, have the familiarity with them. But yeah, it's a lot different this year preparing for the season with all the teams scattered in different conferences. I feel like I'm trying to, keep my head on straight, trying to figure out what the landscape looks like for each one. It was so much easier to get dialed in when everyone was in the same conference.
No, for sure. And around here, we just try to just stay in a vacuum and talk about Utah football to the Big 12. And as you know, the media picked Utah to win the Big 12. We were down at Media Days in Vegas, had a good time down there, getting to know our new conference peers. Vegas believes Utah will win the Big 12 as well. So the lines, the odds, the picks all seem to favor this team here in Salt Lake City. What are you expecting, Kyle, from a program you know well, Utah football, year one of the Big 12?
Yeah, so I'm right there with the consensus on this one. I think Utah, there's a lot of reasons to believe that they're going to be the best team in the conference, right? I mean, you and your audience know it just as well as I do that how big of a factor injuries were last year. There's obviously, getting Rising back is where this all starts. And anytime you start a season with an established quarterback who's won a lot of games, and at a program where there's been systemic success, like you have to feel good about that. I think that's kind of where you start with preseason predictions almost every year. So yeah, like I feel good about Utah, but also the caveat would be that preseason predictions in this era of college football are so much different than they were even a few years ago, right? With the transfer portal and just the freedom of movement there, it's just so hard to know what these teams really are going to look like going into the year, because you used to be able to say, okay, they've got 16 returning starters, returning quarterback, therefore they coming off of an 8-win year, therefore they should be a little bit better, right? Like that just doesn't work anymore with how much movement there is. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like Utah going into the year. I certainly would call them the favorite in my bowl projections. I had them winning the conference too, but at the same time, I would not be so confident that it would be some massive shock if they were 4th, 5th, somewhere in that, because there's just so much unknown now.
Been a little while since you and I caught up, so I can get your take on some things that have happened, kind of in the past a little bit. And since you and I last spoke, Utah has restored the coach-in-waiting moniker to Morgan Scalley's employment agreement. It was his once upon a time, and then we know the situation with the unfortunate text messages that caused Mark Harlan to take that away from him, and also a serious dock in pay. A number of years later, Morgan has restored the confidence around here to have that moniker restored to his contract. What's your reaction? Do you like the continuity feel is what's been sold around here? The head coaching job at Utah is not what it was when I was in school there in the late 90s. It's certainly more of a premier job. They pay on par with the biggest and best in college football. I thought maybe Mark Harlan would want to kind of put his own stamp on it, doing a national search. As it is, they're going to just elevate the defensive coordinator who's been here for a while. What are your thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, well, I wasn't surprised by it. I think, after everything that happened, he had to work his way back into it, right? And I think that was like the process seemed like a fair way to go about it. From where I sit, at least I'm not there every day, so I'm sure there's a lot that went on that are just people outside the building aren't privy to, right? But for me, looking at the direction of Utah football, Kyle came from within, right? He was there for a long time. I'm sure he was influential in the direction of the program, right? Because he's going to step away when he's good and ready, right? And I think that knowing that someone that he trusts, he probably felt good about being able to make the recommendation, right? Because this decision wouldn't have been made without any consultation with Kyle, right? I think that much is clear. And so I give him so much benefit of the doubt at this point. I think he's earned it. He's, I think, the second longest tenured coach in college football at this point, behind Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. I think Gundy at Oklahoma State and him are right there in the 2 spot. Look, if he thinks that Morgan is the right guy for the job, like after doing it for so long, who am I to say that a national search is going to uncover someone that's better off? So for me, no surprise, and I think continuity is really important in college football.
So this year brings the expansion of the college football playoff to 12, which is very exciting for folks around here. Should Utah win the Big 12, they will get that invite. I don't know that I've ever talked to you about whether or not this is something that you like. Do you like the 12 expansion? Do you want to see it expand more? Did you like what we had? What's your take on the new reality of college football now that it's a 12-team CFP starting this year?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think, look, there's 130 some odd teams at the FBS level, right? And the fact that you had a playoff system with 4 teams. I mean, you had teams. I mean, Florida State last year goes undefeated during the regular season. It doesn't qualify for the playoffs. For me, that was just inherently flawed, right? It made no sense that a team that was undefeated shouldn't at least get a chance to play in the postseason. And I think that's true for the group of 5 champion, right? Like Utah is a good example of that, like several years back when it went undefeated, right? Look, that was a team that should have, in this system, would have got a chance to measure itself in a playoff system against the other best teams in the sport, right? And so, yeah, this is, we've come a long way as a sport to find some sort of postseason that makes sense. I think what's very clear is, right, if you were starting from scratch and you're like, okay, you have, excuse me, 9 conferences now. Okay, what's the best way to do it? And you had no history with bowls or anything like that. No one would ever be like, oh, what would be a good idea? We would have, let's at the end of the year, have a bunch of exhibition games all over the country. And they'll be kind of like vacations for the players. And we'll just see how those goes and then decide who's the best at the end of that. Like it's such a flawed system, the bowl system previously, to from a competitive standpoint, to go about finding who the best teams are. So yeah, we're further down that path. And what happened with the 4-team playoff is it devalued all the other bowl games. And so even the New Year's 6 games became less important after the playoff came around. So like the Rose Bowl was diminished. Guys were sitting out of the Rose Bowl for Ohio State against Utah, right? So we saw that. It's like, okay, well, the Rose Bowl is now devalued if it's not in the playoffs. So we need to expand this a little bit more. So I think a 12 is good. Like, look, if it got to 16, would I complain? I think FCS season has 24 teams. Like, it seems fun to watch playoff football for that many weeks. So I wouldn't be opposed to something that's even a little bit more inclusive. Like, look, are those teams going to be relevant at the end of the playoffs? Probably not, right? But look, I think there's something to be said about just qualifying for the playoffs. It'll be fun for fans and fun for college football. Look, the NCAA tournament has 68 teams, and it's the best event that exists in college sports. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. And I think eventually it probably will end up growing.
It does feel like, and I don't think this is a hot take, that, they're expanding it to 12. The walking line is, congrats, little fellas. You guys have access now, but it's probably space mostly occupied by bigger brands in college football. So Big Ten, SEC, I don't know, 3-4 each, if not more. I bring that up because I wanted to ask you, do you think Utah has to win the Big 12, or any other Big 12 team simply has to win to get in? Do you think there's at least an outside shot the Big 12 gets more than 1, if not 2? Maybe. Can we get weird and say 3?
Yeah, so I think there will be years where the Big 12 gets 1 team. But I don't think that's going to be every year. I think, I was going through the projections, and I think there's a really good shot that they should expect to get 2. I think it'll net out to be 2 more than 1, 2 more than 3. I just think, look, if you look at the end of the year, how many times a Big 12 team will be ranked in the top, 12, top 11, it's gonna be somewhat frequently, right? Because all it takes is to have 2 really good teams, right? So yeah, if you are a 9-3 team, and you lose in the conference title game of the Big 12 title game, yeah, you're probably not going to get in, right? But if you have an 11-1 team and then another 11-1 team play in the Big 12 title game, yeah, like there's a really good chance that that's a team that still at 11-2 will be ranked in the top 11. If, of course, it's dependent on what's going on elsewhere. But I don't think you can set any like clear parameters of like it will be 1, it will be 2, it will be 3. I think there's going to be a decent degree of fluctuation the way things are structured for now.
I'm just realizing the question I was going to ask you next is based off a report I saw on the .com side that you wrote. I didn't realize it until so Colorado has banned Sean Keeler, the Denver Post columnist, from asking questions of Coach Deion Sanders or any other members of the football program, and that came down today. And you're the one that wrote it for the ESPN.com. Whenever I hear banning reporters, pulling credentials, I cringe. Obviously, I'm a media member. But, Chris Camarati is going to join us, has been down to Boulder a couple of different times to kind of try to ascertain what the feeling is down there around Deion and the program. And it does feel, I hate to say this, but a little cultish, a little weird, a little, like we are all in this one little circle and everyone on the outside, you are not welcome here. Especially if you ask questions that make our guy uncomfortable. Fill us in on the details and then give me your take on what Colorado decided to do by banning Sean Keeler from the Denver Post from asking questions today.
Yeah, so Sean's a longtime columnist at the Post and is very skeptical of Deion Sanders, a coach that just guided his team to a last place finish, right? So I think there's, for all the hype and praise that Deion has got, like he was the Sports Illustrated spokesperson of the year while coaching a last place team. Like the hype for him is not based on anything he's accomplished as a coach at Colorado. It's because he's this figure in American history, right? It's not just sports. He transcends sports in American culture. He's just that level of celebrity, right? And so he has so many people who are just Deion fans who are not Colorado fans. And then you have all these Colorado fans who have just adopted Deion as just like the savior of the program, and he can do no wrong, even though he hasn't really done much right in terms of final results, right? You can praise him for the attention, the money, the season tickets and all that. But look, at the end of the day, 4-8, 1-8 in the 4-8 and 1-8 in the Pac-12. Not a lot has gone right there. And so Keeler's been really skeptical. He's criticized him several times, and he's a columnist, so he writes his opinion, and that's his job. And just like it's, your job here to speak your opinion on your radio show. Like my job's a little bit more, you're reporting the news. This is what happened. And in this case, like the story that I wrote is just basically laid out what happened. So Keeler has, over the course of several months, like he made it very clear that he doesn't think Deion's doing a good job, and he writes his opinion, which is his job, is what he's paid for. A couple of weeks ago, he had this really weird press conference where, before Keeler asked a question, the reporter before him was asked, and I have the quote like right here. I'll just have to do off memory, I guess. He asked, why is it important for everyone to have Aflac as part of their life? That was an actual question by a reporter in a press conference. Deion, of course, is a paid spokesman for Aflac. So you're getting this question about here, talk about this company that pays you a significant amount of money in a press conference about Colorado football. Then it's Keeler's turn. He's trying to ask a question about football. Deion is peppering him with, why are you the way that you are? It's not normal. I want to help. And then refuses to answer his football question. Another reporter jumps in, immediately asks her, and his question to Deion Sanders at the football press conference is about, what he's doing for his birthday. Like, how adorable. So Deion's really getting treated with the kids' gloves by most of the Colorado press corps at this point. You have a lot of media members there, media members in air quotes, who are really incentivized to, to toe the company line and promote Deion and praise Deion. And, then they get treated nicely by him, this massive celebrity. And Keeler's an outlier there. And so Deion hasn't taken to that very well. And it's honestly pretty soft and sad that Colorado has resulted to this. So I'll be fascinated to see how this plays out. I'm going to be in Colorado next week for the opener against North Dakota State. So maybe we can talk after I'm done with that trip.
Certainly, I just to follow up and forgive my ignorance, are they allowed to do this? Are they like, is there something contractually that allows them to ban a credentialed reporter from asking questions?
Yeah, so there's not like who's going to stop them, right?
Sure,
That's
yeah.
the thing. There's no enforcement there. I don't know if like the Football Writers Association of America might try to intervene here and try to get to some sort of resolution. Sean's allowed to go to the games still. He's allowed to be in the press conferences. He's just not allowed to ask questions. Like they're just not going to call on him, which again is so soft. Other Denver Post reporters are allowed. Again, it's just crazy that we're saying they're allowed to ask questions at a press conference, and we're talking about the Denver Post in the Denver market, right? Yeah, look, if like the only solution here for Colorado is like just start winning some football games, and then people will start actually believe in all the hype. But until then, there's every reason to question a lot of Deion's tactics. I mean, you talk to coaches who have, are familiar with how that program is operating. Like, everyone in the country is skeptical about how long this thing's going to last. Like personally, if Deion's there next season, I would be surprised. I think he's there to coach his sons for the last year, to coach Travis Hunter for his last year. He's saying he's going to be there for the long haul, but every indication is that that's not what his priorities really are.
I wonder, excuse me, if you've been able to dig in a little bit to try to understand how good they'll be. Utah sees them, third to last game on the road in Boulder. Vegas over-unders 4.5 wins. So will they be improved from a year ago? Is this a team that actually should be considered, I don't know, to maybe win 6 and go bowling?
So they should be improved just because it's hard to be worse than last place, right?
Sure.
They were last place in a much better conference. And then they won, their 3 non-conference wins were all against teams with losing records. So look, I think Shador's a good quarterback. I don't think he's as good as everyone says he is. Look, Noah Fafita and Cam Rising have had significantly more success than Shador Sanders at the college level, yet Sanders is the one with all the hype. And maybe it's an NFL thing, but again, look, this is college football. Noah Fafita had Heisman numbers at Arizona, led them to 7 wins, they're the 4th best finish in school history in the AP poll. And when was the last time you heard Noah Fafita's name mentioned in the national media compared to Shador Sanders, right? It's just bizarre how it is all played out. Even from the start, it's such a phenomenon and cult of personality, and we'll look back on this in 10 years and be like, wow, what a weird time that was for Colorado football, because he'll be gone and he'll leave the place worse. I guess it was in pretty bad shape, but it certainly won't be in good shape when he's gone.
All right, dude, before I set you loose, those of us over here at ESPN 700 pride ourselves in seeing around corners and being ahead of trends. So we have started a YouTube channel here this year, So I'm seeing you for the first time on video on our YouTube channel. I'm just going to ask you, who's your celebrity look alike? When somebody says, all right, Kyle, you look like, because I've got one now that I've seen you. Who do you get more often than not?
So there's only one person that I've gotten consistently, and maybe I'm a little bit more clean shaven than usual right now, but I get Justin Verlander a lot is the one I get.
Justin Verlander,
especially if I have a hat on and I'm a little bit, if I go a few more days without shaving, is the one I get. But right now, looking at you wouldn't get that from my appearance right now on the screen.
You look like the lead singer of Death Cab for Cutie. You look like Ben Gibbard.
I'm familiar with Death Cab, but I had no idea what he looks like. Now I'm gonna have to look that up.
I was trying to pinpoint as I'm watching. Okay, so that's my Kyle Bonagura celebrity lookalike. He's a very talented guy, so I'm going to go with that.
All right, I'll take it. I guess I'll have to wait until I see it, but I'll have to check that.
All right, brother. Hey, thanks so much for the time. Excited for football to be back, and we'll do it again soon. Okay.
Sounds good. See you.
All right, Kyle Bonagura. I've never seen him in person before. By the way, I now know what I look like on camera sneezing.
You're welcome.
It's not a good look. I'm an aggressive sneezer. I sneeze loud. It's aggressive. It's like visceral. I sneeze with my whole body.
Yeah, sometimes I try to hold it in so much that it becomes worse. and then you look like you're about to explode, you got to just let it go, especially when you're on there.
We are on YouTube. If you want to see what I usually look like doing the show, today's the day. I've got my hat on backwards, honor of my guy Rye.
There you go.
Just a couple of dudes in their mid-40s just flipping the brim backwards. I'm in my post-yoga pajamas, and my streak of dressing up for the YouTube channel lasted 2 days.
Which is, in my opinion, fairly respectable.
It's a streak.
Yeah. It's not one.
Yeah, no, it's a streak. So maybe I'll do the hair on Monday, wear a collared shirt. Probably not. Shout out to our friends at Big O Tires. You can get our Healthy Car Special for $59.95, which includes a conventional oil change, checks on alignments, brakes, batteries, and more. We want to keep our customers safe on the road and help them save money on tires and service. There's always something on sale at Big O Tires. Stop in at any of our 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah or schedule an appointment online. We know tires and service can be an unexpected expense, so Big O Tires wants to make sure you have financing options to keep your vehicle in tip-top shape. We have no credit-needed financing options to fit any budget and any situation. Big O Tires has over 50 locally owned and operated locations in Utah. Visit bigotires.com to find a location near you. Also, do you live or work in a building with an elevator that just doesn't seem to cooperate and just loves to inconvenience you on a regular basis? Do your property or your building manager a favor. Tell them to call Metro Elevator, Utah's preferred vertical transportation experts at 801-946-7003. That's 801-946-7003. 6 days away, college football. 13 days away, NFL. Are you ready? Do you have everything you need to watch all the sports you want in one place? Dial 801-424-DISH. You can save money, upgrade, support local. What's going on, Ryan?
Yes, it's only 6 days, and that's super quick, especially since you're only going to hear me a few more times. We'll be playing football. Actually, the game's this weekend. This is an opportunity to get set up and get the best promotion that we have seen in ages. This 2-year price guarantee, 2 years worth of credits. You're going to get the NFL Red Zone, which also you could get the multi-sports pack included, plus movie channels. And guys, we'll hook you up with dinner at JCW's if you call now and get set up. This is an opportunity you don't want to miss because, honestly, you work too hard to not have access to all the games, and you work too hard to spend too much money. Call us up and let us lower your bill. This is what we specialize in. And, guys, I got tons of internet options, actually 10 different providers now. And this is a neat opportunity. We've got one of the providers offering a $200 gift card if you call and get set up. Call us up. We'll get you the best price. We'll get you installed as early as next day. And we'll be throwing dinner at JCW's. Call us 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
3 hours down, 1 hour to go. 1 hour solid of college football to take you home on your commute on a Friday. So keep it right here on ESPN 700.